Hello and welcome then to the AMX Global League Season 4. This is the AMX 1 Championship Light around the Hockenheim ring and in the Renault Clio Cups here. And what a beautiful sight, isn't it? This, although not as glamorous as the old layout where it was through the forest, nonetheless it has provided some good racing here. So then, welcome today from me, Amir, alongside me, Damon, and we are live here today for a pair of races around two completely different circuits, but both are Grand Prix circuits. One is Hockenheim ring, and the other will be coming out later, somewhere in Hungary, but I think people can guess that. Damon, the Renault Clio Cup around a very short circuit. Again, we have that kind of similar combination last time when we were at Brands Hatch, if I'm not mistaken. That was really frenetic racing, wasn't it? Now we're going to get pretty much the same thing here, but a bit of extras because they can still spread their legs a bit.
Yeah, and we're familiar with the Clio Cup cars. Of course, they've been a staple of AMX1 for a while now. And half of the course, a short circuit with a lot of corners, especially something as technical as Hockenheim ring, should make some really good racing for all of our drivers on the grid today.
Certainly, with the stadium section that we have come to know and love, especially given the fact that it's the only part of the Hockenheim ring here in the Baden-Württemberg region of Germany that has been kept since the early days. In fact, if you look at the maps all the way to the 1930s when it first drawn out, that stadium section remains a constant. So that area, we can safely say a lot of drivers are well accustomed to it. You can go side by side in the Sachs curve, for example. You can try to at least nudge a car out wide, or if you get a good run out of the final corner, you can try to send one on the inside coming through turn one, but that is also quite dangerous because you can get a corner cut around the outside. But regardless, we'll get to the nitty-gritty today after this. Here's our socials at the bottom: Instagram, Twitch, X, Discord, YouTube, and of course you can sign up on amxrace.com via our website and short form content via TikTok. Now then, without further ado, let's go to a bit of housekeeping to get things settled here, to just touch base with everything before we get into the action. Now then, the Season 4 overview, it runs from 27 January to 21st April. We're coming to the crescendo of the season. It's the business end right now. $20,000 up for grabs and next level racing gear ready to be won. Most races are held in the year and a variety of car track combos, as we've seen obviously so far up to this point. Race format, a qualifier of 20 minutes, then we flip the script on its head with the top 15 being reversed, do a 20-minute first heat, and then do it all over again by flipping the results from that first race and another 20-minute heat. So that's pretty much the race format as it is already accustomed to a lot of people this season. You can have the driver cams on if you require, because that is required for the season. Drivers must show their faces up so that we can know who's behind the wheel and get some good shots in between. With the payout balances of $100 paid out each month for the drivers who are lucky enough to be above that range, racing on every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sundays, and you can sign up anytime at amxrace.com. Schedule now, and we are racing as per usual on Tuesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays for AMX1. All 3 days will be at 5:50 p.m. GMT, and of course the big one afterwards, AMX 10, 7:20 p.m. But make no mistake, both categories are big on the people joining here because they know what's at stake is a lot of cash out for grabs. Now then, this is the prize pool, as I mentioned just now, a great segue to that, where you can get $7 for qualifying first, and the slowest among the top 15, 20 cents. When you flip the script on its head, if you get a win in race number 1, it's the same amount as in qualifying, $7, but with an extra $1 for the fastest lap, and the same thing for heat number 2, with a total of $100 up for grabs for each race. Next up is the top 12 that we have so far this season in AMX1. And up in front, despite a couple of ACC races that he has done, Loïc Régier is still up in front with $107, gaining 4 positions from his previous standing, knocking over the previous leader Maurizio Lozano to second place, despite doing more races. But make no mistake, if Lozano were to be joining here anytime soon, which in fact he is, he will probably retake that championship lead afterwards, in front of Diego Villarreal, Conor Healy, Lucas Durago, and Gerardo Ramos, who's also in the race. The rest of the top 10, Lucas Verli, Lautaro Gayoso, Mateus Machado, Fabien Nogier, Fabrizio Belzidi, and Leo Mora round out your top 12. From 1st to 12th, it's a difference of roughly about $71, but mathematically it's still within reach for the guys like Mora if he were to join today and try to catch up to Loïc Régier. And here in question is that championship standing. This is for the AMX 1 Light category. Remember, these are separate categories from the main championship, but AMX 1 and AMX 10 points will still count towards regardless. So Xavi Pla and Mateus Machado round out that particular top 10. Parra, Vasquez, Lopez, Mercerat, Antunes, Villarreal, and Gerardo Ramos are playing catch-up to Maurizio Lozano, who is well and truly ahead in this one by about 26 points ahead of Gerardo Ramos, but both of them are racing tonight. Expect fireworks to fly here when it comes to the business end of the season, when championship points are definitely becoming more and more crucial. And of course, to round out the housekeeping, here are the promotions that we have on offer for those who just want to join here and become part of the action. First up is the D3 promotion, where you can purchase an entry 3 days before the race and get 30% off, which pertains to all AMX Season 4 races for this season. Meanwhile, the Season DC tickets will have season entry tickets available for purchase. These tickets are for each class, a total of 6, split between 3 in AMX 10 and in AMX 1, where it will provide 50% off to all races of purchase class. Now then, with the housekeeping out of the way, we come to the part where we all come for here. What car and track combo we're on. As we can see, the track's pretty obvious, but we're going to let Damon explain in further detail where and what are we racing on. Damon?
Thank you very much, Amir. And yes, tonight we are on Hockenheim, the short B layout, of course. Based in the city of Hockenheim, or town more like, in Baden-Württemberg. It was opened all the way in 1932, so this track is 91 years old this year, which is pretty insane. 2.6 kilometers, of course, the regular layout is a bit longer than this. The original iteration of this track was almost 12 kilometers long, so you have to chop up a lot of road over the years. And unfortunately, of course, this was the site where Jim Clark tragically passed away in a Formula 2 racing accident in 1968, and because of that, chicanes had to be built into the longest straight of the course. But that was then, and this is now. Hockenheim is a very different circuit than it was back then. And we go over to the cars that they will be driving this time around. It is, of course, the Renault Clio Cup car, performance track-focused version of the Renault Clio Cup, of the Renault Clio RS. About 200 horsepower going to the front wheels, weighs around a ton with a sequential gearbox. Very easy to drive, of course, being front-wheel drive and all, but should provide us some amazing competition this time around as well, as it always has been with these cars. I love the Clio. It's one of my favorite hot hatchbacks, and this is just the ultimate version of it. So, with that out of the way, back to you, Amir, to flag us off for qualifying.
Thanks for that, Damon. Certainly, as we can see, the preview images in the background pertains to what you were talking about, this side-by-side action. Really, it's amazing to see how slow cars provide the best of actions. Now then, qualifying is well and truly underway. We're going to jump into it now. There we are, on board with Gerardo Ramos. We might not see the livery right now in car, but when we see it outside, it's definitely going to be a shade of yellow because he's normally that particular unit. But here's that chicane coming up to the stadium section. A lot of drivers will definitely be cutting that one, don't you think, Damon? Because it looks like a ski jump. It might not be easily attainable, but if you have to cut it right, you can gain a lot of time. As you can see, Xavi Pla and Gerardo Ramos in question setting the pace here, 11.2 respectively for both, but 200s in it between them. You can follow the live timing here, of course, if you scan the QR code.
Yeah, and after the course, with a course that has this many technical sections and a lot of corners, the important thing is that you want to shave as much time as possible, but within reason. As soon as you pass the track limits, you end up in a very bad position for yourself as well. So hopefully these drivers don't end up in such a position. But right now we are seeing Gerardo Ramos. We can see the livery on the bottom there underneath his player cam. And yeah, par for the course, red and yellow. The colors we all know and love, especially from him.
Yep, La Roja with a bit of yellow on the side. So definitely we can tell he is of the Spanish inclination. He is right now the fastest guy. In fact, bang on cue when we were on board with him, he set the fastest time of the entire session thus far, 11.2, but it just improves by 500th of a second, in fact, in front of his fellow countryman Xavi Pla, with another fellow Spanish speaker Maurizio Lozano in P3, who's also improved to 11.4, so top two right now. only by about 500s, but if you include top 3, 2/10 of a second. That is very close. And on a short circuit like this, 2/10 isn't worth very much actually, because you can still make up plenty of time somewhere in the around the course. And we're waiting for the likes of Villarreal, Para, Godoy to really turn up afterwards.
Yeah, and Godoy, I've seen him wait till the very end to set a blistering lap time, so hopefully we'll see the same from him. Either that, or he could probably hang back a bit, because he'd still be walking away with a pretty good sum of money and end up first on the grid afterwards. So he might want to hang back, wait for the good start position. We'll have to wait and see, of course. We're currently 11 minutes into qualifying, so they've still got quite a bit of time to set the fast lap.
Certainly. About, as you said, 9 minutes, less than 9 minutes now, when we go across the line here for Maurizio Lozano. In fact, it looks like he was up to second at one point, but might have been just... Oh, in fact, it is... no, Xavi Pla has actually gone to the 10th now, 10.8. So 4/10 faster than Ramos. Lozano is going to bail on this one, going to go back to the pits and reset. But looks as though battle of two Spanish speakers, it's now in Xavi Pla's court, and whether or not he can actually improve on that is another thing altogether. We're on board Ramos. It looks as though it's not going to be any improvement this time around, Damon.
Yeah, but we all know from the way Ramos drives that he is pretty fast during qualifying, but where he shines the most is during the actual races himself, because he's able to put on the pressure and keep up with pace with the front runners almost all the times I've seen him race. And we're on board with Diego Villarreal now. Villarreal here also a pretty consistent performer that he's taken part in 16 out of the 20 races that we've had. So he is actually making away with quite a bit of bank in his purse. Relatively consistent finishes. Has made a couple of mistakes as we just see him go a bit wide there going into the start-finish straight. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what strategies these drivers will put on tonight, especially since we see them on Saturday when I was watching them go around Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A lot of strategy to play there, so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and I was in the comment section talking to a lot of the drivers there, and also some of our usual viewers. That was, when you point out the word strategy, that was the key thing, isn't it? On an oval, how you can try to plot out a maneuver, especially when you don't have restrictor plates being involved in that one, like super speedways. You have to manage the traffic and try to overtake through the corners better than what you do on typical ovals. This is about the same, isn't it? It's just a tactical battle, trying to find which part you can overtake. So we have a bit of stuttering here, but looks as though we're back. And now we are going to be viewing Renato Para. We remember talking about this with Lorenzo a few weeks back, how that car was pretty much the talk of the entire comment section. A police car from Sao Paulo, no less.
Yeah, and looks like he'll be doing his best to hunt down all the speeders this time around as well. So Renato Para is also a pretty consistent participant in these races. It'll be interesting to see how he's developed his racing over the current season. Actually, most of these drivers are very consistent in terms of participation. So when we say that kind of stuff, we honestly really can't tell how the results are gonna be, even though you're really familiar with the drivers, because anything can happen, right? Especially on a course as technical and as narrow as this, where I wouldn't want to jinx it by saying it will be clean racing, but I definitely will predict there will be a few instances where the drivers may come a little bit too close to for comfort.
Well, you just said it, so let's hope. Knock on plenty of wood if you have any wood nearby to say that it will be like that, as we see. That might be top speeds. Yeah, it is. So it's top speeds across the back straight. Amazingly, Xavi Pla didn't have the fastest of speeds, but managed to make a lot of time through the corner. So maybe he's prioritizing entry as opposed to entry and exit as opposed to just focusing on the straights. He's still fastest, 10.8, 4/10s ahead of Gerardo Ramos, and a further 6/10s ahead of Maurizio Lozano. So top three still as it is. Villarreal has been setting some times, but I think they are ready to just go for one last time. As you can see the little outlap indicators on the side there. So everyone was in the pits at one point, except for Para, who's been circling around the track at the moment. Still hasn't been able to improve on his time. But nonetheless, this is where it comes to the business end of qualifying. Who can set the fastest time when it comes clutch, Damon?
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned the way Zavipla drives around and he focuses a lot more on cornering speed, because on a track like this where you don't have that many straightaways, exit speed just becomes that much more important, because you always want to be at the next corner faster than everyone else, and with the way that you exit corners, uh, it definitely plays a part in whether or not you'll be able to extend the gap later on as well.
Indeed, and well, that might be the case as well in how these drivers also ramp it up their lap. As you can see on board with Para, he is on a hot lap already. But guys like Playa, Ramos, and Lozano, who are at the top end of the timing sheets, they probably be focusing on the exits, particularly at the final corner, because you do want to start your lap on a good foot and just carry that momentum through the whole way. We didn't see how that goes for how they went across the line there, but Para looked as though he was improving slightly, but still not able to. He's 2/10 off his previous time. And speaking of momentum before the start of a lap, there's Ramos, personal best first sector, but went off the boil in the final two, Damon.
Yeah, unfortunate for Ramos, but he'll be starting on P2, on P5 on the grid. Sorry, I forgot we were doing reverse grid. I've been doing this for how long now? It's been about 4 weeks. But regardless, yeah, I think Gerardo Ramos consistently, he very rarely qualifies in the top spot, which I think also can work to his benefit, because he's always able to match and then exceed the pace of the car in front while pressuring them to an extent where he might cause them to make an unforced error. So, part for the course for Ramos here, I think.
Yep, you never know how he's going to turn out on the day. But in this particular case today, he looks quite G'd up, to be honest, because normally you see him pretty calm and laid back when he's behind the wheel. But it looks as though today he's a bit more alert. He's probably realizing that it's a short circuit. He can probably make the most of the overtakes, especially if he starts further behind. Maybe he's trying to get the pole for good measure, but at this point in time, at this current juncture, it might just be plus for the taking, because 4/10 of a second is a huge one. Because we did say earlier 2/10 may not mean much, but when you go to 4/10 of a second, it doesn't sound much on a big circuit, but in a small one, it pretty much is.
Yeah, and as you say that right now, Zavipla is on another hot streak. Look at those very fast purple sectors to the first two parts of the course. We might be on track to set another fastest lap here.
Yep, as we saw just now in that small indicator, purple means you're setting blistering fast times, fastest in the overall session. Green means you're improving, it's a personal best. And yellow, it's just slightly off it, but you never know, you might just still be carrying it throughout the entire lap. As across the line comes Zavipla. Amazingly, despite two purple first sectors, in fact, he managed to improve by about nearly 500ths of a second and inches away in front, and that might be the end of his qualifying, because he just called it quits there.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be happy with that. I think Gerardo Ramos doesn't have that many chances left to try and exceed that time, and in fact, I don't think he will, as well as he's rounding up his final lap. We're on board with Mauricio Lozano now. He's also not that far behind Gerardo Ramos, so maybe he'll be able to set a quick one. We've got about less than 90 seconds left in qualifying. So at this point, I might say that qualifying is pretty done dusted right now.
Correct. Because if Lozano does cross the line right now, which he should, that will be about a minute and 10. But no, he wouldn't have enough time to complete another one. And he scuffed the end of this one too. He was on for personal best, but that final sector wasn't exactly really setting the tables alight. And it looks as though that might have been a cut track. And that's it. He'll just line up in P4 when we flip the script onto the race. P3 overall in qualifying. But no doubt he'll be a little bit disappointed the fact that he had the pace in there, just couldn't really crack it at the end. Now we're looking at the rest of the field. Godoy crosses the line. He is on the 13.3. What say you, Damon?
Man, it's kind of hard to say, because Godoy hasn't really actually improved on his lap time since the start of qualifying. We did say before that he might be looking to do a late flying lap, but it looks like that hasn't happened right now. And he'll be able to finish this lap, but he won't be able to do it in time for the next one. You can see he goes a bit wide there near the start-finish straight. And another point of contention we have to talk about is this particular start-finish straight, because you want to have a good exit speed for the straight, but then you also want to be too careful you don't overspeed into turn one, because these front-wheel drive cars, they have a very big tendency to understeer. And as we reach the end of qualifying, I do see Nico Godoy, no improvement on his lap time so far. So qualifying is as it is, with Zavipla with the fastest lap of the session.
Yep, a beautiful view of the entire Nürburgring Baden-Württemberg complex. Pla in front, player one indeed, 110.8 in front of Gerardo Ramos by 3 tenths, with Lozano behind him 4 tenths below a second. Top three then covered by a second. Then behind him is Villarreal, Para, and Godoy. So Godoy, despite his rather tepid qualifying session, he will be on pole position for the race. So let's see if we can make the most of that, Damon.
Yeah, and we're about to get into heat one. So, well, we're not gonna go into predictions because I don't want to jinx anybody. So, Amir, why don't you just sound us off?
Certainly, Damon. As we are waiting for everyone to grid up here, as per usual in iRacing tradition, it's just letting everyone settle in, choose their desired amount of fuel, and of course, you don't have to change tires like in ACC. You can just be generated a brand new set of tires as on the grid we go. Lights on the gantry will be seen by the drivers in heat number one here. Cameras waiting for the action to roll. Drivers will have their revs rising, and we are underway here. You can hear the radio call from the iRacing spotter to flag you off. It's actually a green flag as opposed to red lights and go off. But either way, Godoy takes the lead coming to turn one. Villarreal follows suit. It looks as though it was a bad start for Para as he gets swamped. In fact, it was Para getting a poor start, but he's going to clap back here at Villarreal to take second place, with Godoy going in and out of existence for a second, but he's back in it now. He's still in the lead in front of Villarreal and Para. Para is trying to fight back to get up to P2. Lozano, Ramos, and Pla just minding their own business further behind here as the field now enter back to the stadium section. It's almost as quick, isn't it? It's a blink of an eye. They're actually back around here to meet up with the crowd watching them here virtually, Damon.
Yeah, and it really goes to show just exactly how short this course is. A lap of about a minute a lap, and you have 15 laps in total. And you just really get a sense of how narrow the track actually is. You can see a little bit of door-to-door action between Diego Villarreal and I think that was Renato Para. He did drop a few positions there. And Diego Villarreal takes it, but Gerardo Ramos is hard to tell. A little bit of a skid there. I think a driver just went off. Two drivers just went off. That was Sevi Pla. He's had a bad spin. Not spin. He's gone off.
Slide, yeah. Yeah, he slid. And speaking of sliding off, Godoy as well, actually. He even went onto the grass coming out of the Sachs curve where Vettel famously went off there in 2018. So Godoy, despite being in the lead, he was not pressured that much, actually just going off there. So unfortunately for him, what was a promising first part of the race in the first lap has actually gone a cropper, but he's not out of it just yet. He's still in there in the shout of at least getting onto the rostrum. Villarreal, though, up front where he took over from Godoy, has a bigger problem immediately behind him. Ramos is ready to pounce.
Yeah, and Ramos is very, very familiar with this position. In fact, most of the races that he's been in, he's always hounding the lead car and managing to pounce it just the very last moment. But here comes the move. He makes the pass happen on Villarreal. Looks like he's been able to make a save. Villarreal has to drop a little bit, and just like that, Gerardo Ramos in the lead.
Fantastic move there. He actually ducked under the inside, catching Villarreal almost napping there because he thought, okay, maybe he will not make that move, but he did. They went side by side. Mercifully, it was clean, and they went through. Still about 2/10 of a second in between it. You can see both of their driver cams facing actually incidentally almost towards each other. It's almost like a boxing match, isn't it, where they're trying to weigh up and size up how they go here. But Villarreal is still no doubt within the fight, within earshot here of retaking the lead. And I did say earlier through that Sachs curve, it's possible to go too wide, but not in a Formula car because the negative camber outside of that corner can actually take you into the gravel trap. But luckily, the Villarreal hanged it in there, and he's still ready to recapture that lead, trying to get up to the back of Ramos. As behind there, Lozano and Para continue a little scrap. Para goes off. It's like he outbraked himself there, Damon.
Yeah, he looks like he oversped into that corner and ended up having to lose a lot. Especially with these front-wheel drive cars, the amount of understeer you have cannot be understated because you don't want to jump on the throttle too early, end up going wide, and then losing a lot of time because these cars, 200 horsepower, you have to carry as much momentum as you can. And especially to a circuit like this, we can see the picture that Xavi Pla, so that he comes up to Para, but Para forces him a bit wide, and then just like that, he's unable to regain traction to rejoin the line, and then forces himself off wide.
Yeah, again, when you're on throttle, especially in a front-wheel drive car, the moment you twist the wheel even more, it's not going to come back. The slip angle just doesn't allow it. It's just like in any car with rear-wheel drive. It's same principles applies, but it's even worse in a front-wheel drive car because, again, like the word says on the tin, front-wheel drive. So the moment that you turn in, it's going to understeer. You just have to go off it and then come back on, as what Xavi did to get back onto the track to regain lost ground. But he was right at the back. Now he's up to P3 in front of Mexican Mauricio Lozano, but both of them speak Spanish, of course, so this might be interesting exchanges here between the both of them. As we got a few drivers blinking just now. That was Godoy at one point, but it might be due to slight throughput, but luckily not enough to actually send him to go out of the race. So at least he's still in it tonight right now, as we're on board with Lozano here behind Pla. Looks as though is it relatively even Stevens between both of them, as they're both taking it quite gingerly. You can see Lozano's in-car character, how much he's not turning that much, Damon.
Yeah, you don't want to you don't want to overcook the steering inputs as well. You don't want to go too aggressive and then have the car not actually steer at all, which is something you always have to look out for with these front-wheel drive hatchbacks. We basically have 3 separate battles going on the track right now. We have battle for P1, we have battle for P3, we have battle for P5, each of them in their own separate instances. So we'll have to see whether or not any changes in position happen right now, as Lozano is trying his best to catch up to Xavi Pla, hasn't been able to do so. Same with Villarreal, they're trying to catch up to Ramos, but the gap has just been increasing over the course of the laps.
Certainly is now up to 0.8 of a second. We can see the sector by sector comparisons. This lap, however, it looks as though Ramos actually had lost a bit of time to Villarreal by about 500s, close to 600s, but he's gained a bit in the second sector. So that hairpin technique that he uses to just mount the curves and get the car out of there is what's making a difference. Look, a 10th again being gained here just because he used that particular technique. As we're going to come across the line and see the comparisons in the lap times as well, it looks as though Ramos may have been able to just eke out a bit of an advantage across the line as they go now. There you go, another 10 gained there. So in total, he's now up to second. Lap time though, 1/10 of a second covering the first 2 drivers. So it's pretty close. In fact, fastest among the top 4 that I ride was Lozano. Comparatively, it's not much, but the more that you actually keep it together here with these guys, the more that it will just Constantina if somebody in front were to make a mistake. And Ramos here right now is trying not to make that particular mistake, even though he's got 3 drivers with same pace behind him.
Yeah, and if you make a mistake while you're in the front of the pack, you run the risk of having blocking pretty much the entire track for some of these cars, because it's a very narrow course. They don't have that much room to maneuver. You can see that Godoy there, I think he cut a bit deep. Not sure if that was a product of the way he entered that corner, but I think he'll be fine. He's still trying to catch up to Renato Parra here, blinking in and out of the Shadow Realm on occasion, fitting, especially considering the color of his car. Either that or the livery just hasn't loaded, but yeah, on brand for the black car.
All carbon if you look closely, because you can see little threads on that particular vinyl wrapping. But in terms of off-track car, he has the most. He's actually on 11 right now. He wouldn't want to get too much, and he might be ejected from the race or gets a penalty, but he might get a penalty for that one. Oh my word. Parra really got pit maneuvered there. And ironically, he was in a police car, but that's not the sort of pit maneuver he would have wanted. Parra gets sent to the barriers, Godoy goes back to the pits, and both of them are pretty much compromised, Damon.
Yeah, I mean, it just looked like Godoy just swerved into Renato Parra there. I have no idea what happened. We're going to have to see a replay later on. Could be a connection issue, but we don't really know for sure until we see the replay. But it does look like an intentional move from Godoy's side. Parra will still be on the road, but he's way out of this race right now. Meanwhile, the battle for second place, I think this is Xavi Pla on the tail of Diego Villarreal. Villarreal dropped a lot of time. Like, he actually dropped a whole second over the course of the last 2 laps. I wonder what happened there, but he gave Xavi Pla the opportunity to try and make a pass on him as they enter the start-finish straight right now. You might see a move happen in turn 1. We'll have to wait and see.
Yep, let's see where Pla's going to do it. Not through turn 1, because again, I did say that opportunity you can do it, but you run the risk of hitting the sausage curve and go wide. He's going through turn number 2 now. Guys, one on the inside. Villarreal once again generously giving the gap on the inside, but smartly cuts across back. So he goes for the switchback, but not enough momentum in there for Villarreal, who's running the Giancarlo Fisichella Minardi helmet back in 1996. But looks of it, that's a really nice touch he has. But unfortunately, that helmet probably hasn't given enough of good juju here for him to actually get back to the back of Xavi Pla. Pla has inched away up to 0.6 of a second. He has to set his sights on looking behind here to Mauricio Lozano, who's also hot on his heels.
I mean, you could say the same about Fisichella himself when he wore the helmet. They didn't really have the best results either. So maybe this is on brand. But yeah, Villarreal is actually losing quite a bit of time, especially in these middle sectors with the tight corners. I'm not sure whether or not it's the line he's taking or whether he's overcorrecting his steering inputs, but he does look like he's sliding a little bit when it comes to that particular sector, which loses him a lot of time and giving Lozano even more time to catch up.
Yeah, we saw just now in the comparison how much time he lost to Ramos, almost 0.2 of a second when we were comparing with him. So that's where he actually loses a great amount of time. Look, first sector, he's pretty strong here. But let's see again, we're staying on board with him coming through that second and, or in fact, there's only 2 sectors anyway because they cross the line afterwards to get a comparison. Then we also have the speed trace. Looks as though this time around, however, he is not being lost by Xavi Pla. If anything, he is actually reeling in Xavi. So let's see that. Interesting. Oh, there we go. There's that visual representation of what happens when he lost time. It's the long corners, isn't it? That's where he's losing the gap to the guy in front. Look at that. 2/10 now that was lost to Xavi Pla.
Yeah, and I'm not particularly sure if it was because of him oversteering, but he is catching up on the final parts of the track. So maybe it's just that particular corner is a weak spot for him. We'll have a bit of time to improve on it, especially during Heat 2 later. But look at that, he doesn't have time now because Lozano is hot on his heels, waiting for an opportunity to strike. And look at those cars just jumping over the curve as they enter turn 1. Anything that gets your car to rotate a little bit easier is a very welcome addition here. Lozano, his eyes are locked in. He's waiting for Diego to make a mistake.
Yep, and you'll be hoping that the Fisichella helmet will probably be a 2003 rendition where, remember, he won in that crazy Brazilian Grand Prix where the car caught fire in the end. And he had to wait 2 weeks for him to be confirmed the winner afterwards. So Villarreal probably be wishing that particular oddity would be in his favor, as right now, well, both steely-eyed drivers, you can see where they're pointing their cars at here, as a couple of drivers in the comment section asking about how to do sim racing. And we cannot pass judgment with what happened between Parra and Godot. We had to let the stewards do that, but it looks as though that one car may have been swerving into the other. You guys can make your own judgment of that one, but certainly somebody was not supposed to be where they are to where they in relationship they had to be. As someone also commented, Gonchi Rodriguez, so that's Pedro Ricardo Rodriguez, wasn't it? I'll look up on that. As David, you can carry on the action.
Yeah, while you do your Googling right now, I'll carry you through the rest of the track right now. But the gap between Xavi Pla and Diego Villarreal is still a consistent 7/10, but just behind there, Lozano, another 6/10 behind. So we could still have a pretty close battle for the next 4 laps. Coming in, I think Xavi Pla just made a mistake. Diego Villarreal capitalizing on that. He goes a bit wide, loses a lot of momentum going there. Diego is trying to make something happen, but having to slow down a little bit as well gives Lozano opportunity to catch up. We'll have to see right now. We got about less than 4 laps remaining in the race, and Amir, pretty clean all things considered, barring that one incident.
Indeed, and the fact that Villarreal still has an opportunity to be on the rostrum here is just, well, amazing how the pace has actually, even though as we can see, that is the driver in question, Gonzalo Gonchi Rodriguez, the late Gonzalo Rodriguez, I might add, because he unfortunately died at Laguna Seca in 1999 in a very awful accident where the throttle stuck open and he crashed over the barriers at the corkscrew. So a great talent lost too soon, and it's nice to see that he's been immortalized by Villarreal, but unfortunately just when we were talking about him, oh no, he locked it up, isn't it? And just as I said, that it was a lock-up incident because of he was trying to be on the brakes to avoid a big accident, and look at that. Villarreal shaking his car in absolute frustration, knowing the fact that there was a potential podium gone begging.
And we're going
we're gonna get a replay now of what happened.
Replay of what happened.
Yep. Yep, Damon, you can take us through that one. We'll wait to go. There we go.
A little bit of desynchronization happening between us right now. But okay, I'll take us through the replay. As you can see here, they're coming up to the start-finish straight there. Godoy pulls up alongside, but it looks like he just swerves into Para and then hits him off into the barrier. But he wasn't far enough behind him to be unscathed by that, so he also ends up in the barrier. Both of them suffering heavy damage and having to retreat back to the pits afterwards.
Yeah, but conversely, it looks as though it looked like Para was actually trying to cover off Godoy as well. So it takes two to tango here, and unfortunately, both of them came in with the exact amount of force that it was enough to send both of them into the barriers on the inside. So unfortunately, the end of their particular charge, but it looks as though it might be close between them. No, that in fact that's just intervals. So it's 37 seconds behind for Para, with Godoy about 40 seconds behind Para as well. So they're really literally well out of it. As up in front, Gerardo Ramos has not been phased whatsoever, because after he took the lead away from Villarreal, he's not even looked back. He's got about 3 laps, in fact 2 laps after this, to just complete a first heat that has been absolutely barnstorming by his standards. Really no way in heck that he could lose this right now. He's gained over 4 positions. Xavi Pla as well, 3 seconds behind after battling with Villarreal Lozano, and he's got enough time to take out a bottle and drink too.
Yeah, and Gerardo Ramos literally is running a single-player race right now. Over the course of this entire race, hasn't had any challenge really. So again, gonna be a good win for him, barring any more mistakes within the next couple of laps. But if pace is to be taken, he's been very consistent, so I have faith in him. I might have just jinxed him by saying that, but you know, I've got my fingers crossed. I've got my legs crossed as well. I've got my toes crossed, so nothing should happen, right?
But you're pretty much wrapped up like a Mexican burrito afterwards, weren't you? Because that is a lot of wrapping up that you need to do here. But yeah, let's hope that the final lap here will be Ramos's coronation on this particular heat, because it's just, well, absolutely dominating, wasn't it? He never really looked back, as somebody put equivalent water to blood, but I don't think he's smoking up in front right now. He's literally smoking in terms of his pace. Really has not looked back ever since he took the lead away from Villarreal. Looking on board with Mauricio Lozano, this is the only 2 drivers battling out on track here with any sort of factor that can change the positions in that particular podium. As we come across the line right now, white flag flies, and again, despite being up in front, Ramos is keeping a healthy pace. He was 3/10 faster that time compared to Pla. It looks as though it's Pla that's going to be under pressure from Lozano if he were to make a mistake somewhere in this final lap, Damon.
Yeah, and we did see him make a couple of mistakes early on that gave Villarreal opportunity to catch up, but then by miracle, it was Diego that ended up making the larger error and giving Xavi Pla more room to breathe. Lozano here is very close, but probably not close enough, as Ramos here finishing up the lap. Actually, no, I'm super wrong. He's still like halfway through the second sector. So,
well, you're not wrong, because it is the right
I was very, very wrong.
Well, you're not wrong in terms of that. It is actually the start area for Rallycross and the dragsters. As we can see there's a drag strip coming along here. But now we're on to the final corner. Gerardo Ramos then on his way to yet another victory this season in AMX Season 4. Sees the checkered flag. He doesn't go towards it. In fact, he's going to wave towards the checkered flag and does so emphatically in front of Xavi Pla and Mauricio Lozano. So it's a Spanish-speaking 1, 2, 3. Make that 4 as well with Diego Villarreal, who would no doubt be disappointed to miss out on the podium, but he will have a second bite of the cherry here as we come into heat number 2 and try to put a bit of honor on Gonzalo Rodriguez's name afterwards, because that was such a good drive, a spirited one, but no cigar this particular juncture, as we're going to wait for the results to come through. Shout out to Ralph Benitez, who gave us a bit of info on Gonzalo Rodriguez there. It's quite touching, isn't it, to hear that a lot of drivers still remember drivers from bygone era.
Yeah, definitely. And well, he's gonna have another chance to redeem himself. Hopefully, he doesn't lock up his car again, because that was really an unfortunate mistake on his end. But the results are in going to come in. Nico Godoy and Renato Parra will be starting off the front of the grid this time around, with Diego Villarreal will be starting P3. And the fastest lap actually goes to Zevi Pla. Of course, we have seen this during qualifying. He did end up setting a record pace compared to the rest of the field. So no surprises here, but Gerardo Ramos taking it quite handedly.
Certainly, and I think Ramos will not mind that one bit, losing $1 from that, but he gets the big one in this particular battle. Now he's going to have to do it all over again in heat number 2, because he's going to start at the back behind Pla, behind Lozano, and other drivers like Villarreal, Parra, and Godoy can make amends for rather low beat end to the first race, especially Villarreal, because he was so close, tantalizingly, to that podium. Now he gets another chance here as heat 2 will get underway pretty soon. Cars grading up,
and all the cars are on
waiting for the green flag. Yep, waiting for the green flag to fly, because we thought we were going to get a start line gantry, but we're going to wait for the radio signal to come on, and we are off here. There's the green flag. We're underway, and it's Parra and Godoy again, just like what happened in Heat 1, where they're going side by side into turn number 1. Who's going to come up with a whole shot? Oh, Parra actually had to take evasive action there, because Godoy went missing for a second. He went up to 88 and then some into the future, back into the future, but he said, oh no! Oh, that might have been desync, isn't it? Because of Godoy going in and out of existence, and unfortunately when he came back on, he pitched. Oh no, in fact, he gets pitched around here by Ramos, and Ramos goes through as well.
This is unfortunate. Gerardo Ramos has such a great first heat, and then he got unfortunately taken out. And he definitely did not see Godoy there, I think, and he's suffering heavy damage, so he's still proceeding, but I think that might necessitate a pit.
Yeah, he will have to fix that car, and for Godoy, two straight heats involving, sadly, unfortunate accidents, and this time around, unfortunately, just finished them off. He is right at the back. Okay, I said finished him off. I mean finishing off in terms of getting a good finishing position for the race, as Parra goes offline there. That's a weird exit out of the final corner. Maybe he had to lift up the gas a bit because he needed to get rid of a penalty, but that brings Lozano into play, and Pla as well, with Villarreal just 4 seconds behind here. So Villarreal realistically still has a chance of a podium as Lozano and Parra engage in battle, Damon.
Yeah, and I do think he had to shave off a bit of penalty there, because he was quite slow through that last corner before the start-finish straight, which gives Lozano opportunity to pull up alongside him. Zevi Pla is also behind him. You can see the Diego Villarreal incident. Yeah, Nico Godoy tapped in, but Villarreal didn't see him on the inside, so he immediately got punted off, which is unfortunate for him. And you can see, coming out of the picture-in-picture, Lozano actually made the move on Renato Parra and is taking the lead above him.
Yep, and Pla will try to make it soon as he goes on the inside. We saw a couple of maneuvers happen here at the Sachs curve, and there we go again. And oh no!
Oh no!
Oh, just as I said it, the move was about to be done, but Parra parries Pla off the track, and he's into the gravel trap. Luckily, he kept it going, and unfortunately, loses a couple of positions. But car is actually still fine. Maybe just a bit of scratches here and there allows Ramos and Villarreal to come through. So Villarreal is now on the podium proper, but he's got a heavily damaged Gerardo Ramos right behind him for company as we come across the line here. We're only on lap number 3, would you believe it? We still haven't got even halfway, but there's so many incidents that has happened, David.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. And Gerardo Ramos, I guess he thinks that the damage isn't substantial enough for him in the pit, because he is on the storm, and it looks like he's actually catching up to Diego in terms of cornering speed. So probably just surface level damage, although considering the state of the front end of that car, I would say otherwise. If he thinks he can handle it, then good on him. He is closing the gap for Diego Villarreal. You can see picture-in-picture the Ramos and Godoy crash. Nico again was swerving onto the inside where Ramos was at, and then ended up hitting both of them out of the track. Nico Godoy ended up in the pit. Ramos decided to keep going, which is to his benefit, actually.
Yeah, but the car is more or less second-handed. It looks like something that you could take up at a junkyard in this one. And again, It's amazing how Ramos is still going with that damage. As someone in the comment section says, he'll be F1 legend if he could actually win this one, but highly doubt it because there's Mauricio Lozano up in front and he's well and truly ahead, 3 seconds ahead of Renato Parra. At best, right now, he could just snatch the podium position away from Diego Villarreal, but how much of a gut punch would that be if Villarreal were to lose this? Because he can clearly see in the rearview mirrors how heavily compromised Ramos is, but he can still raise out. What an absolute unit this driver is. He can still get on with the damage, and guess what? He's gonna go for it, and he takes P3.
Yeah, and even after all of that, you can see he actually set the fastest lap in that particular lap of the race. So definitely, I think he's pretty okay with the condition of his car, because maybe he's just shedding weight.
That's one way to put it. As you can see, the times on screen, a 111.1 with a car that second rate. That is amazing. It's so sturdy. As you can see, someone asking the question, are Clio Cup cars very strong? To put it lightly, slightly stronger than single-seater cars, we can tell you that, because a slight touch in an Indy car or an F1 car on iRacing is enough to just send you off big time. So these cars, they're like bulletproof little tanks. They can take a lot of beating, and they are still kicking out and about. As you can see, Ramos then still setting 11s there, 11.3, despite having to overtake Villarreal. He's still on it, but he only has about 0.5 of a second as the difference between himself and Villarreal. So watch this space. Second, third, and fourth, there's a battle brewing.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we're able to catch up to Renato Parra, but it looks like it might not be as difficult as the task as we make it out to be, because he's already narrowed the gap to below a second. You can see the delta between them. Ramos is more than half a second, made up more than half a second, I should say, when to Renato Parra. So Renato Parra needs to pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah, Parra, in fact, is really struggling right now. He's lost more than 2 seconds in just 2 laps to Lozano. So he's going to become a bit of a cork in the bottle here in front of a heavily compromised Gerardo Ramos, which we can safely say is not even compromised at all. He still has the speed here, but he needs to avoid another accident. If he was to get into another one, the car may have well and truly be finished. But try telling him that, because he's coming across out of the final corner onto the start-finish straight side by side. We saw Parra getting involved here previously with Godoy. He leaves a bit of room on the inside, and Villarreal goes through on the inside as well, side by side. 3 cars abreast coming to number 2. Villarreal was very opportunistic, but unfortunately didn't have enough momentum to come through. And now Fla is in play as well. It's a 4-car battle here, Damon.
Oh, that was such a brave move from Villarreal. It cut across the curve in order to get as much straight of a line as possible to that turn 1. Unfortunately, I think he overspent and had to slow down quite a bit because he was understeering a bit. He's still going to make it past Renato Parra, I believe. It looks like he's very close to them. And look at that, he's pulling up alongside on the inside. He makes the pass happen, might have a little bit of contact. No, he keeps it clean as they're coming into the next left-hander. Parra is just ceding a lot of time there. Xavi Pla comes around on his outside. Hasn't been able to make the move yet, but it only looks like just a matter of time before that happens. Xavi Pla is still hounding him. Renato Parra trying to keep pace, but hasn't been able to do so over the course of the race so far. We're past the halfway point, and right now, Xavi Pla pulling up alongside him, coming out to the straight. Will he be able to make the pass happen before they enter turn 1? Looks like it. Renato Parra slows down way earlier than he does, and you can see what an amazing camera angle from the rear bump of Diego Villarreal's car. Xavi Pla making that overtake look easier. Renato Parra, he locks up the brakes and he goes off.
And that is that particular battle rescinded. But what an amazing camera angle that we had. That weren't we, Damon? That was really an action shot and a half. And just as we saw the overtaking being done, we thought Parra was just gonna dive one here, but the battle rescinded because he locked up big time. He did the exact same mistakes Godoy did in the first heat, and he's gonna have to recoup all of that in the next half of the race, because we're coming up exactly to the halfway point here through the Sachs curve, and still we can't even judge it at all because Ramos really has not touched out yet. He's still a second ahead of Villarreal, with Xavi Pla closing in hot on his heels in P4. Really can't call this, Damon.
Yeah, it's really tough to see. I mean, we're still halfway through the race right now. Diego Villarreal is ceding a little bit of time to Zevi Plus, so we might have another battle for the podium, and Diego will not want to lose this one. After what happened earlier on, I believe it was him that locked up the brakes in that particular curve on race 1. So he did see someone else make that mistake, must have given him a little bit more confidence in terms of his own braking. But yeah, you can see the lines he's taking. He looks like he's being a little bit braver.
He is. In fact, case in point, how he actually was that 3-car sandwich. He was on the inside. He had the line, but he had to back out of it because he knew full well that the corner was coming and it was tightening up. He didn't want to risk sending all 3 drivers into the barriers, so he backed out of it smartly and in turn gained a net 1 position out of that. So he's still in the fight for the podium. As we can see the sector comparisons, it looks as though the car that Ramos is driving right now is probably becoming a bit too damaged here because he's losing a lot of time. Look, sector 1 alone, 3 tenths that he's lost to Villarreal and Pla. Second sector, not much better. He's losing overall right now, an average about 4 to 5 tenths here, and the gap is shrinking ever more so by each corner.
Yeah, but at this point in time, it's still over a second, so he's still in a relatively comfortable position, of course. We have to focus more on the battle between Zevi Pla and Diego Villarreal. Villarreal taking an extremely wide line out of turn 1 there. Might try to carry as much speed as he could. Unfortunately, it gives Zevi Pla a much nicer exit on the outside. And look, as the camera zooms into the rear bumper of Diego Villarreal, Zevi Pla looks like he wants to make a move. We're pulling up alongside him, blocked by the bucket seat of the Clio, but he makes the pass happen.
Yeah, I think Villarreal might have actually gotten his exit out of that hairpin a little bit too slowly. That gave Pla enough momentum to come through, and once again that second corner has been the Achilles heel for Diego Villarreal as he sees a podium opportunity slip through his fingers. But the battle's still not over because you can see there Ramos has not gone away just yet because it's still neck and neck between these top 3. So if anything were to happen to Ramos's car in the closing stages of this heat, it might just be an opportunity for Pla and Villarreal to just capitalize, isn't it?
Yeah, but if we know anything from the way Ramos has been driving, he's been very, very consistent when it comes to races like this as well, especially in a position where he's relatively comfortable. Meanwhile, Maurizio Lozano in a race of his own there, all the way in the front of the pack, 7 seconds clear of the rest of the field, so he's in a very, very comfortable position.
Yep, 6.9 seconds, and the fact that Ramos we thought was gonna be doing the impossible by just closing up to the back of the Mexican in a really heavily damaged car. I'm not sure how on earth that car was still performing well at one point, but it looks as though the legacy of that damage may be a bit too much for him. It's a bridge too far to get the win here in heat number 2, but it's still an opportunity to just stay on the podium, but he's gonna have to stave off huge attacks from both Pla and Villarreal from behind, because look at that, less than a second, 1.8 seconds in total between second and fourth. Oh, again, we still can't call this as we are now coming into the final 5 laps of this heat that seems as though has gone away so quickly.
Yeah, definitely. That probably has something to do with how short the track is feel, but 20 minutes doesn't feel like very long on a track like this. You can see Zevi Pla is gaining a little bit of time, but is also losing time in the final sector of the race, so Ramos is still holding on to that position very well, in fact. Oh, as I say that now, the gap just immediately shrunk to less than 7 tenths. Zevi Pla could load the mountain in time, but hopefully you can make it clean, and especially in this particular narrow sector of the track, a clean move is very, very much welcome.
Yep, and if any maneuver that he has to do has to be done in corners like this, the tight hairpins at turn 2 and turn number 4, that's the only opportunities that he's going to have here. And if he's really brave, he could try coming through the Sachs curve in the stadium section. We saw a couple of drivers making the move stick here, and if you're really tempting fate, try to overtake coming to turn 1 or the final corner, but you risk of running wide into the grabber trap. And it looks as though Ramos then is going to be placing his car where it will be impossible for Pla to overtake. At this point in time, not yet, because there's still a bit of a gap between the both of them. But make no mistake, it's going to be the widest Clio Cup car ever made here to hold on to second place for dear life, Damon.
Yeah, and you can see that Ramos, on board with Zavipla. You can see Ramos is taking a little bit more of a defensive line to defend against the attack of Zavipla, but at the cost of losing a lot of time, especially when it comes to the first two sectors of the track. He's gaining time in the final sector, but losing all of that time again in the first two sectors. So I'm wondering if it might be the car itself, or it could just be the fact that he's not particularly quick through the first two sectors. Oh, here comes Zavipla. He's right on the bumper there. He took the hairpin a little bit slow, giving Zavipla a lot of time to keep up. Picture in picture, you now see on board with Pla coming up to Gerardo Ramos. He's got about 3 laps, slightly about 3 laps remaining, so we'll have to see whether or not he makes a move within this time.
Yep, and if it's a move that he has to make, again, we just talked about it, it's either to the hairpin at turn 2 or in the hairpin at turn number 4. Those are the two prime overtaking spots here on the short layout of the Hockenheim ring, the National B, the Club B circuit, as a matter of fact. Let's see then, what can he do coming out to the line this time by? It looks as though it's going to be a bit slower for Pla. And in fact, it's faster by about 99 hundredths of a second. You can see 706, 607. You just switch the numbers around. Pla will be wishing that he'll be in front though in terms of position. As you can see the comparisons previously, how he was faster in the second sector. Again, Ramos normally is very strong in that second sector, but he's really making the most in the first and third.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of it actually has to do with the condition of Ramos's car right now, because he seemed to have almost everything under control, but he might actually suffer more damage as the race progresses. Not to mention the tire degradation might be suffering a little bit throughout that relatively fast first sector. He is still holding off the attack though, about 8 tenths separating these two drivers right now. So well, we'll have to see whether or not he'll be able to hold it. We've got about 2 laps remaining, as Maurizio Lozano will be crossing the line ahead, signaling the penultimate lap, the start of the penultimate lap actually. So you can actually see him in camera, so it's kind of close, especially when you notice the fact that Ramos did shave the gap between him and Lozano by about a second.
Yeah, but the gap behind him is much closer. In fact, it's 4 tenths now between Ramos and Pla. So Villarreal might be low-key wishing that both drivers will be battling even harder now in the closing stages here to get any sniff of a chance of a podium. But it looks as though both of them might just be battling out here for the final positions on the rostrum. Ramos manages to gain about another 5 tenths in this lap, stretches the lead to Pla, or maybe Pla may have actually cut the corner a bit too much there and has to get off the gas, because look, that's quite unnatural to lose that much time when the pace is almost equal, Damon.
Yeah, I think he did. I think it might have been the big hairpin out of turn 4 into turn 5. That big hairpin probably cost him a little bit of time. But Ramos is going to be breathing a sigh of relief there as he clears the rest of the field. And Lozano is about to close. Yeah, the white flags have been off. He's just passed the start-finish line for the final lap of the race. And Lozano, very clean race all about, almost no contest, but that probably more due to the fact that there were a bunch of incidents at the back of the grid.
Well, you won't mind that one bit, because he did have a bit of a tough race in that first heat as well, where he, despite being on the podium, had to fight like heck to get it up there. So he'll be liking the fact that this second heat is a bit more boilerplate, literally just clean all the way, not much histrionics. He's going to come through the final sector right now here to take a well-deserved victory, and crucially for him, because this is a sub-championship among the MX1 categories, extending his lead, Damon.
Yes, he is almost 30 points clear of Gerardo Ramos, so he'll be very happy with this result as well at the end of the season. And here comes Lozano. Final corner as he enters the start-finish straight. He's going to be very, very happy with that particular drive. Not much in terms of celebration for him, of course. Looks like just another day in the office, but the other man of the hour is, of course, Gerardo Ramos, making up nearly 4 positions over the course of this 15-lap race, and despite the fact that his car was severely compromised.
Yep. despite being severely compromised, he still managed to get it up there into P2. What an absolute mad lad to do so. As we see the other drivers come across the line, Para being the last of the finishers. And that's it. That's heat number 2 in the record books for AMX Global Series Season 4 for the AMX 1 class and in the light category. Quite a mouthful, isn't it? But at the end of the day, we make sense of it all, how it has actually transpired. And we'll see the results come on screen very soon here to confirm the provisional results, of course, because it can still change with stewards reporting and all that behind the scenes. But once again, the fast and the best drivers come out in front to the fore and just do the business. So Lozano and Ramos, the two big winners here today. But in terms of the overall championship, Ramos will be still playing catch up to the likes of Lozano, who after taking Heat 2 here quite comprehensively stays in front in the championship. 5.8 seconds in this particular heat in front of Ramos, with Xavi Pla, his fellow Spaniard, in third. Behind him, Villarreal so close. 2 straight heats. He finished 4th place, but he'll be holding his head up high, knowing the fact that he actually gave it his all and still be within inches of taking the podium places since. The other drivers include Para and Godoy running up your top 6. Despite having 6 drivers on the grid, the racing was absolutely nail-biting from start to finish, wasn't it, Damon?
Yeah, it depends on which battle you were looking for. Of course, when the drivers were out in front, they had almost no contest. But the battle of the midfield was the most intense one of this particular season. And this is just the great thing about AMX, is that you always get nail-biting racing, and it's always going to be a blast to watch. Probably not particularly to commentate, because if like multiple incidents happen in succession, you just run out of breath, as I experienced on Saturday with Connor. But aside from that, yeah, great racing all around.
Absolutely. And again, the point that I made earlier, slow cars make for great racing, and it was really proven in spades, wasn't it, tonight for now, because we're going to get more of that after this. It's just amazing how highly chuckable these cars are. You can still make the most out of it despite going into a bit of troubles, especially for some of the drivers further behind. As you can see, the sponsors on our the bottom of the screen: Automatics, BenQ, Next Level Racing, and of course KARA, the Korean Auto Racing Association, our steward partners here. We'll be looking over many of the stewards reports that have been going through throughout the entire season. And of course, our socials at the bottom: AMX Global on Instagram. We're also live on Twitch. You can follow us on X, formerly Twitter. AMX Global Discord, we can actually join and just chat with some of the drivers. And of course, you can chat to even us here in case you have any other queries that you have seen from today or any other races throughout the entire season. AMX Global on YouTube, live as well, complimentary to the Twitch stream. Sign up for the races on amxrace.com, and of course, short form content on TikTok and Instagram after this. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back as well for more racing, especially given the fact that AMX 10 will be coming after this, and also another familiar circuit, as you can see in the live stream header. The name of the track as well has already been revealed. So from one ring to the other, Hockenheim to the Hungaroring. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back pretty soon after a short word from our sponsors, and we'll be ready for AMX 10.
See you in 20 minutes.
to save our home. We must travel through the gateway to find new energy.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We are live here for AMX Global Series Season 4. And we are here for AMX 10, the front-wheel drive category from the Hungaroring in TCR. And you cannot get a better combination than that because this is a combination that these two have come hand in hand together in real life. Hello, welcome from me, Amir, and alongside me, Damon. We're back here again with a class of car that we are both well and truly enamored with, we can safely say, because they have provided such good racing throughout the entire season, Damon.
Yeah, TCRs have always been amazing, especially for the few weeks that I've joined AMX and seen them drive around. Brings out the best in drivers as well. So hopefully we'll see more of the same here. And Hungaroring is a track that I personally have not had too much experience with. So, it'd be interesting to see.
Indeed, and well, if you want to have the tidbits of it, we're going to go into it after this, of course. Here's our socials at the bottom, from Instagram to Twitch to X, formerly known as Twitter, Discord, YouTube. Of course, we're live right now alongside complimentarily with Twitch, and you can sign up for the races via amxrace.com and short form content on TikTok, as we will be posting it in the coming weeks. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the action, let's go to do a bit of housekeeping to see what's what. And after we get to see the car and track combo towards the end. So, overview of Season 4 runs from January 27th all the way to April 21st. As we said in AMX1, we're coming to the business end of the season. $20,000 up for grabs with next level racing gear for the taking towards the end of the season. Host on a variety of car and track combos with the race format as follows: 20 minutes in qualifying, flipping the script on its head for a top 15 reverse grid, then a heat 1 that lasts for about 20 minutes, or depending on the number of laps, whichever comes first, and then we do it all over again by flipping the script for the top 15 reverse grid and another 20 minutes in heat 2. So that is pretty much the format that we have come to love here for the season. And speaking of the rest of the overview, driver cams are required, especially when you can actually join via AMX Discord website to see everyone's faces here to get the best of reactions, and of course to put the driver cams to good use to see how they're driving in real life as opposed to in virtual. Payout, we pay the balances of over $100 each month, especially for those who have been lucky enough to score that much, and racing on Tuesdays, Saturdays and Sundays, which you can sign up at any time on amxrace.com. Schedule, as we can see, Tuesdays, Saturdays and Sundays the races are held for this season, with 5:50 p.m. just now for the preceding AMX1. We're on to 7:20 p.m. slot for the AMX 10 guys, so let's see if we can get the best of the drivers here in this particular time slot. Next up then, it will be the prize pool that will be up on the screen and what's on offer for the drivers. Up to $500 up for grabs, minimum rating of 2,000, so you really need to be brushing up on your iRacing if you want to get into this particular league, with $30 for quali, and then Heat 1 and Heat 2 together for a total of about $98. I finally got my maths right there if you include the fastest lap from both heats. So plenty of good stuff on offer here for the drivers if they were to be claiming our proverbial triple crown. Next up then is the top 12 for the AMX 10 category, with the driver leading the way right now with about $849 in his pocket or points. It's Guy Valero, who will be the odd one out as we will be going through the cars and track combo after this. You'll see what we mean by that. Aaron Vasquez is closest challenger in second place, and Kieran Harrison as well, likewise in P3. So all three drivers who are proverbial contenders in the category are right up there on the sharp end. The rest of the field: Felipe, Regende, Kulhavi, Zamplini, Demori, Corentin Guinness will be a bit disappointed to be this far behind, given the fact that he was the previous season champion, as he was making the most of the TCL races at that time as well, in front of Blainyat, Dean and Juba, running out your top 12 in AMX 10. Next up, this is the overview of the standings in the rear front-wheel drive category for AMX 10. From Vasquez to Fredes, Nash, Soriano, Felipe, Aguiar, Guinness and Leitner running up that first couple of positions all the way to P3. Valero in P2 is chasing now after Kieran Harrison, who is ahead by about 36 points here coming into this round. Really is the man to beat in the other categories on iRacing, but he's also no slouch in front-wheel drive cars, and TCRs definitely are right up there as his bread and butter here. But let's see how he can fare today with so many drivers on the grid, known to be very good TCR specialists. So then, that's part of the housekeeping out of the way. This is the final part here. Current promotions, D3, purchase an entry 3 days before the race and get 30% off, pertains to all AMX Season 4 races. With the Season DC tickets, where you have the website up on offer, it will have season entry tickets available for purchase, where these tickets are for each class, a total of 6, of course, underneath AMX 1 and AMX 10, the 3 subcategories that we have here. So plenty of championships for drivers to win, and if you could clean up all of it, that will be definitely another part of the Triple Crown we can talk about later on, and will provide 50% off all races of purchase class. So that's pretty much the promotion up on offer, and it's still open, and in fact you can still join the qualifying session as we speak. Now then, that's the housekeeping out of the way. We'll go into what's what and where we're racing here. So Damon, take it away for this one.
Thank you very much, Amir. Now, Hungaroring, of course, one of the Hungary's best courses, and in the city of Magyarod in Hungary, opened in 1986. So, relatively recent track compared to the Hockenheim ring, which we raced on earlier tonight. 4.381 kilometers in length. A bunch of fast sections as well as some very technical and tight sections as well. Fun fact for you guys, in 1989, the first layout change happened when they took out the chicane from turn 3 by converting a stream. And in 2003, it underwent another redesign where they extended the length of the main straight by 200 meters and made turn 1 hairpin even tighter. So we're about to see some pretty intense racing, and let's go over to the cars that we will be taking around this course. It is, of course, the well-known TCR class. 350 to 350 horsepower these cars have going to the front wheels. Weigh about 1,200 to 1,500 kilograms with some pretty substantial aero, runs a sequential gearbox. And par for the course, the most used car in this class is, of course, the Audi RS3 LMS race car, TCR version. So it's pretty much a one-make race when it comes to drivers this particular class, but there is one driver out on the grid today that is, I think, using the Hyundai Elantra TCR car, and we're about to see him on the road a little bit later. So Amir, take this away to qualifying, please.
Yep, certainly. As we're going to jump pretty soon, there's the 2 Hyundais on offer on screen. On your left, that's the Elantra. On your right is the Veloster, but is the Elantra the most popular. And speaking of which, we're on board now with a car that's on the opposite end of the spectrum. It is not one of the Hyundais. It is in fact an Audi, on board with, I think it's Kieran Harrison. Yep, Harrison, fastest in practice at one point. Now we're going to go into qualifying here proper to see whether or not he can maintain that pace in this session. And it looks as though, by the looks of it, he's got a bit of a challenge right now. Filipa, Fabi, and Leitner, your top 3, with Naj in 4th. So the Hungarians have actually turned up for this one, because this is basically one of the biggest chances here to impress on home soil. So Zilat Naj and Norbert Leitner will be keeping an eye on those timesheets if they could actually just keep it up for this one, with Harrison in P5.
Yeah, but more interesting to see is actually the time delta between the top 10 drivers, less than 0.6 of a second, separating P1 and P10. So at this point in time, anything could go either way. You still got about 10 minutes left to qualify, so Kieran Harrison definitely has time to put in a fast lap.
Certainly, and he's got about half the session to go here. So to quote Enola Dash from Murray Walker, half the session gone and half the session to go. He said race, but of course I'm just inventing it on the way. But yeah, Harrison has plenty of time to overhaul that disadvantage he has in terms of time by about 10 in fact, from 1st to 6th. Wow, that is very close. And you can follow the live timing as it happens. You can scan out our QR here on the right hand side of the screen. So Harrison then making his way up to turn number 5. It's a very long right-hander. You really, again, want to actually avoid understeering, especially given the fact that it's front-wheel drive. So the first thing that meets the car are those front wheels, and it could actually just send you out wide, don't you think? Isn't it, Damon?
Yeah, and especially for a track like this, which is actually pretty uneven compared to most other tracks that we've seen, makes the overtaking relatively difficult in certain sectors of the track as well, considering how narrow it is. So we'll pretty much see everything in full force once the heat starts. But in terms of qualifying here, we are on board with Kieran Harrison. He's got running in clean air. You see Norbert Leitner actually taking away the fastest time on the board from the Argentinians.
Yeah, 54.9, the first driver under the 55s by about 2,000 a second. And guess what? It is on Hungarian. It's Norbert Leitner up in front, much to the adulation of the virtual Hungarian crowd and, of course, any of the Hungarian homeboys that's watching for his behalf. That is definitely something to smile about. But, of course, it's half a celebration as well because, yes, he got pole position here, but remember, you gotta have to flip the script afterwards as Naj makes it a Hungarian 1-2. He's just about 2/10 of a second behind. They'll have to do it all the way from P12 and 13 after this as we look at now Norbert Leitner on another lap here. It's a bit of a hollow victory, isn't it? Because knowing the fact that despite qualifying on pole, you have to do all the work again in the first heat where you really have to make the overtakes count, especially on a circuit as technical as the Hungaroring where overtaking is possible, but the difficulty is quite high.
Yeah, especially for we've seen some of these drivers, they don't really particularly shine in qualifying, but they're immensely fast during their races. Notable exceptions, of course, being Gal Valero and Kieran Harrison, both on track tonight. So it's going to be a tough ask because if, let's say, like Harrison or Valero make it to the top of the qualifying and then end up in the back of the pit, we almost guarantee the fact that they'll be able to crawl up to the pack, but we'll have to see whether the rest of the drivers can do the same.
Certainly, and given the fact that we have drivers with ridiculous amount of iRating, especially Alexei Nesov, despite being P10, 10,000 iRating. Wow, wait, that is a serious number of years that he has had on this service to be having that iRating high up there. So one to watch out for, especially when it comes to the races after this, for sure. As Harrison, you're about to say something, weren't you, Damien? Because he is actually setting a purple sector there.
Yeah, definitely. Here, Harrison, of course, always very recognizable in that yellow and purple Assetto Racing livery. We'll have to see. He's set really good sectors right now as he's about to cross the start-finish line. We're just going to see whether or not he'll be able to set a quick lap with another purple sector that I think solidifies the fact that he is 154.6. Very fast lap. Here comes Silat Nash just behind him. Another 154, about a hundredth of a second in front of Norbert Leitner. But Kieran Harrison, again, the qualifying master.
Wow, he has upset the Hungarian apple cart there. 3/10 to the good. That was a seriously blistering final couple of sectors. He wasn't really that fast in the first sector, but the last two, really he made it count. And now he sits on the pole. Of course, when we flip the script after this, he is going to start right at the back. But that is a statement of intent, isn't it, Damon? You can tell he really wants to protect that championship lead in the AMX FWD category.
Yeah, and here we also have Gal Valero driving the Hyundai Elantra, the only one on the board, but he's also pretty fast as well. Hasn't been able to break into the 154s yet, but holding on to P4 with that qualifying, that very fast 155, almost 55 dead lap. So he's going to be pretty competitive. I think he just intentionally put himself a little bit of a disadvantage here with the car choice.
Maybe. Yeah, given the fact that the Audi, despite being the oldest car in the TCR category in iRacing and the very first TCR car to be added into the service, might I add, has become quite a underrated choice only by virtue of the fact that the car really has good top line speed and it has good torque through the front wheels. So you can actually put the power in and the car literally will respond to you almost immediately. So that's why it's become almost essentially a one-make race, but there will be few outliers here and there. And this time, however, like previously with Jackson Resende, who chose the Hyundai, this time it's one of the front runners, the proverbial front runners, Gal Valero, going for the Hyundai. So it's nice to see that there's still some manufacturer diversity on the grid, albeit a very, very small percentage of it. It's like 99.7% if we put our maps together right here. As several drivers go offline trying to get a time in, including Alexei Nesov in that Red Bull Audi, and plenty of other drivers too. But really, that's not what you want to have, especially if you're on a qualifying round. We're looking at Carlos Muesca right now. That was certainly a distraction for him, and that proves in his lap time. It looks as though he didn't get to improve it. Okay, he improved it slightly by about a 10th, but not where he wanted to be, Damon.
Yeah, and I don't think you can actually call the Audi underrated if more than 95% of the grid is using it. So, I mean, Kieran Harrison again setting a fast purple sector to sector 1 of the track right now. He's really on fire this time around.
Yeah, first sector purple as well. And when I say underrated, I mean because previously the Audis were just looked but slightly overlooked, but now, especially in AMX 10, really is the car of choice. As we look at this is Norbert Leitner coming to the final sector here. Let's see then, what can he do with this lap time, because he still has a couple laps to go. If he were to just reset and go out again, he's setting personal best in the first and second sectors. Harrison as well was a purple, but then he got dethroned a bit by a driver who's also setting a first sector in the purples. After this purple second sector, we're looking at Leitner. Across the line he goes. Where is he going to be? P2, 54.8. He manages to improve it, but only 2/10 shy of the coveted pole position that will earn him that $30. And looks as though Harrison may have actually taken this lap to cool it off a bit and go up for yet another flyer, because he was setting purple lap times, but not this time though, Damon.
Yeah, I wonder if he made a mistake there that caused him to sack the entire lap. I think he'd still be on pretty good pace right now. Yeah, he did slow down quite a considerable amount, 57 there. But I think he's going to be pretty happy with this particular lap time, because it doesn't look like it's going to be beat anytime soon. But of course, we only have about 2 minutes left in qualifying, so only time to set one more lap depending on where you're set on the course right now. We did see, I think Gonzalo Fabi did set the purple sector and took over Kieran Harrison, and he had green as well, and here he comes. Yeah, he passed the squad finish line, taking away P3 from Szilard Nagy.
Yep, Nagy would definitely be a bit disappointed that he got knocked off the top 3 in the qualifying, but he will start further up on the grid, of course, because remember, we flipped the script on his head when you actually flip it from 1st to 15th. As you can see on the bottom right, purple fastest in session, green is personal best, as a couple of drivers, case in point, Valero and Harrison are setting purple best and personal best in the first sectors, but Valero goes time not improved in the second sector, so might have been just a couple of hundreds in it between there, but it's still enough to actually classify as not improving on his previous time. As we look at Valero right now coming up to the final corner, this will be the last full lap, because after this he wouldn't have enough time to, or does he? He might just be able to sneak in, but it will be quite an nip and tuck. Across the line he goes. He's P5 right now. Will it be an improvement up on the table? And the answer is no. He was a 10th behind, and he has actually called time on his qualifying. Looks as though he's a bit disappointed by that, because he's wiggling the car to the pit wall. He manages to get it stopped in time. It's a couple of drivers.
What was that?
Big time there. Oh, I'm not sure who's that, because I didn't get the. It was a blue car, but I'm not sure which blue car is that. It's not Nasov, because Nasov is driving a dark blue, purple Red Bull car. But whatever it is, that is not going to matter too much, because we're looking up back to Szilard Nagy. He is outside the top 3 right now. Will he be able to improve? Exiting the final corner, Harrison actually has a blinding purple sector there. A 54.3. He managed. He has smashed it out of the park there. There's no way anyone can improve now. Leitner, the best of the Hungarians, P2, and he's actually called time on qualifying as well. He's back to the pits. Fabi, who was purple in the second sector at one point, managed to improve out to P3. Nagy, we're looking at there, stays P4, so he didn't break any. He didn't actually improve his time any more than that. But regardless, the Hungarians know that they mean business here. They are definitely fast in qualifying. Let's see how it goes in the heats, Damon.
Yeah, unfortunately for them, Kieran Harrison, again, just pushing the envelope every lap that he's on the track. 154.3, clear 4/10 of a second in front of Norbert Leitner, finishing qualifying in P2. So they will be starting in P15 and P14 on the grid, respectively. We'll see Marcos Riffel and Pedro Dean on the front, the P1 and P2. Alexei Nesov will be in P3, and the list goes down right there. But just from this is actually gap's a lot bigger than most other qualifying sessions we've had on TCR.
Certainly, because we had like top 15 separated by about under a second. This one's a bit more, but virtue of the fact that Dean and Riffel, the 2 Brazilians, the only 2 Brazilians on the grid here today, are outside of that 1 second. But they have the extra advantage of qualifying first, well, starting first and second on the grid for this first heat. So heat 1 then. Waiting for the lights to come on the gantry, and this time it's a normal light system as opposed to what we saw in Hungary where we had to wait for the green flag to be flown. Gridding up as per iRacing tradition, waiting for the cars to come onto the grid. Several others are still in pit lane, maybe waiting for the final few seconds to just get the race underway. There's car number 6 on the grid. That's Pedro Dean. Alongside him is his fellow countryman Marcos Riffel, as we now wait for the lights to come on. The lights are actually coming on the gantry on that side, and when they go out, we'll be underway. Oh, a bit of a jump start there. That's Nasov. Nasov has actually jumped the start, so he might actually have to go to the pits. We're underway for heat number 1. Green flag waves, and unfortunately it is a green flag start. It's like NASCAR, but this is though Alexei Nasov has jumped the start a bit, but if he was lucky not to crawl a bit too much, he would be like Lando Norris in Saudi Arabia recently, where he just crawled a bit, but managed to get a starting time. But anyway, coming out to turn number 1, that's Riffel on the inside of Muesca. Pascucci has actually made a jump on the both Brazilians, as in fact, he is challenging Pedro Dean coming up to turn number 2 here. And Damon looks as though is a clean start so far, as a couple of drivers further behind making moves. Oh, just as I said it, Nasov gets spun around. Just as I said, it was a clean start. But, oh God, it really was commentator's plight there, wasn't it, Damon?
Oh my god, you really... I think the next time around we should wait until at least one lap is done before we ever say that it's a clean start, because the absolute comedic timing of you saying that and then an incident happening right now. You can see a little bit of contact happening there between Pedro Dean and Marcos Riffel, giving Dino Filippo an opportunity to move up the grid a little bit. Muesca is just behind him, but David Perez also behind, trying to switch positions alongside Muesca here. Kieran Harrison actually made up 4 positions on the grid from that start. And look at that, he's challenging, I believe that's Gael Valero.
Yep, Valero up in front. Those are 2 proverbial challenges in the TCR category, but they're outside the top 10, and in fact, they're just outside of the other 8 drivers in front of them. So, pretty good starts from both drivers. Valero, though, having said that, dropped 1 position. Harrison gains 3. As we look at Dino Filippo trying to look one on the inside, Marcos Riffel, Argentine versus Brazilian. But then we can see further behind, that's Zilanaj and Norbert Leitner. So the consequence of having a good qualifying is they have to be on the back foot at the start of a heat. So that's a little bit of a small price to pay for qualifying well, which is not normally said in racing, but because this is AMX Global, we normally have this kind of racing. As you can see, Nasov enters pit lane, so he did jump the start, and he has been warned by the in-game stewards to just take that drive through, and that's it. That's him well and truly out of contention, unfortunately, but he will, if he finishes the race, start in pole position for the next heat. As across the line they go for the first time. That's Pascucci in front of Dean, Riffel, and Filippa. It's a South American 1-2-3 with David Perez. I'm not sure where he's from. He could be Hispanic or he could be an Argentine, but he's racing with the United Nations flag. So let's just say that he is a Latino inclination in this particular instance. So a Spanish speaker in 5th place in front of Muesca, Fabi, Kulhavi, Valero, and Harrison. That's your top 10. Nash, Leitner, Nesov. Of course, Nesov is going to be out of the picture. Top 12, though, still within earshot of each other, Damon.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty hard battle for P2 as Dino Filippo taps Marcos Riffel on the inside there to try and take position away. Riffel's not going to be too happy with that as David Perez also takes away that position from him. Here comes Muesca, so another tap! He's just taking battles left and right here. Cuts through the track, but has to concede the position because that is a cut track. But he's not going to be too happy with that. Ended up tapped on his rear right quarter panel of the car multiple times in this one particular instance. Within 2 corners, he's just had like 2 separate incidents, and now even more contact as he's right next to Gaston Kulhavi. Kulhavi making a pass, and Harrison he just went off.
Oh, Harrison just got tapped by one of the Hungarians. I think it might have been Naj because he was in front of Naj earlier. He gets tapped white, and Riffel's lap of horror continues because he is still being battled left and right, and I think he might just take justice into his own hands. He does so, and at the expense of Gaston Kulhavi. So that is not on for certain drivers, and for Riffel, he definitely felt that that was warranted, but to the stewards it might be thought otherwise. So we'll see what the Cara stewards think afterwards. Across the line we go. We're only on lap 3, would you believe it? We're not even halfway through, and the amount of action that's happened is plentiful. It's almost like equivalent of the entire season.
Yeah, and I've said this before when I first got into when I first started watching the TCRs. Everyone who drives TCR, they drive like men possessed, and you already see it in full effect here. Marcos Riffel conceding 6 positions from his P2 start. He's not going to be very happy with that, especially considering last lap. But the biggest loser, of course, was Kieran Harrison. Ended up was in P10, ended up dropping 2 more positions from that little spin that he had. He's going to have to try and climb back up again, but he is pulling alongside Gaston Kulhavi and Norbert Leitner. We're coming out to the front of the pack now. Pedro Dean is fending off an attack from Dino Felipa and David Perez. There's battles going on all over the track right now.
Certainly, and you can see some battle packs being formed because after that little slide from Harrison, and of course Rafael getting punted left, right, and center, especially coming through here in the previous lap, there's 2 battle packs. First to 6 up to Muesca. Actually, Muesca and Fabi have lost touch to the guys in front there as well. It might just form another big pack here from 1st to 5th, 6th, all the way to 12th, and we can discount Nasov only for a while though, because despite that drive-through, he's only about 10 seconds behind Harrison. So if the guys in front of him were to come a cropper big time, that might be an opportunity for him to just regain some positions. But then again, he won't be too disappointed knowing the fact that he will be starting on pole for race heat number 2, as that's Felipa barging his way through Pedro Dean.
Yeah, I was about to say there might be an incident happening right now, but we're going back to Silat Nash. He's behind Norbert Leitner and he's in front of Norbert Leitner and just behind Marcos Riffel. Riffel trying his best not to concede any more positions there. You can see the 2 Hungarians going pretty wide there. Kulhavi is trying to mount an attack, but Kieran Harrison is right on his tail, and they're all in each other's draft. So we'll see whether or not an overtaking maneuver happens soon. Doesn't look like it, but they are still locked into that train right now with Gael Valero leading that particular pack.
Yeah, Valero then, not a cock in the bottle. He is certainly fast in this class, and he knows his way around the Hungaroring, especially given the fact that he has driven in iRacing series as well around here. But that gap of 6 tenths of a second is not comfortable by any means, because it could just shrink in a matter of an eye, especially when someone does an unwarranted lunge that will cause 2 cars to actually collide with each other and really reel everyone behind. In case in point here, Pedro Dean, who has already been overtaken by Dino Felipa, has David Perez for company. Perez coming out to the back here of the Brazilian, and really close here as there goes Dean off the track. Perez comes to the inside, and Perez takes an easy picking third place there. He probably just pressured enough to get up the position, but he will now be pressured himself because Dean will not take that line.
A bit of overspeed coming from Pedro Dean, ends up conceding that position to David Perez. As you mentioned before, Perez will now be under significant pressure, not just from Pedro Dean, but from Gonzalo Fabi, who also closed the gap between them quite a bit. About a second, about 8/10 of a second actually separating these 2 cars together. And you can see Pedro Dean there just waiting for a moment to strike. Here comes the battle for picture-in-picture as well. The battle for P8 will end up with Marcos Riffel trying to fend off Zilat Nash right behind him, as well as Norbert Leitner. Kieran Harrison is also closing the gap. He actually made it past Gaston Kulhavi earlier in the lap, so he's going to be driving really hard to ensure he has a pretty generous position at the end of the race. But yeah, I mean, what else can you say other than wow?
Yeah, wow indeed. Despite the earlier punts, it looks as though the car is well and truly fine. Oh, speaking of punts, there's a bigger punt than Gonzalo Fabi, the TC2000 driver in Argentina, takes a big one there, and I think he might be used to that because, of course, touring car drivers IRL really drive with their elbows out, and that was a case of Pedro Dean literally showing too much of it, and he got punted off. But luckily, he just kept it going. But he will definitely be a bit incensed by that. In case in point, he was flashing his lights in gesticulation towards the Brazilian. So no love lost here between 2 countries who are big on football, where contact is aplenty, and no love lost in motor racing as well.
I like the parallel that you just drew right now. Of course, in picture, pretty much seeing almost the exact same battle, but in 2 different points of view. Gonzalo Fabi there now has to make it past Muesca in order to contest Pedro Dean again and pay him back for the shunt that he suffered earlier on in the lap. But just behind that is Gal Valero. He's actually closing the gap between these two drivers quite quickly as well. So, I mean, it really is just a battle to our ages, for the ages right now, as we're past the halfway point of the race. Doesn't seem like there'll be that much more time for you to actually do anything unless you're less than like 2 seconds close to the opponent in front of you.
Or even less than that, because if you were to be just within about 0.5 of a second, you can actually get the slipstream. These cars have pretty much the properties of a brick slicing through the air, where they punch a big hole behind them, and that's when you can get into the suction to get up to the back of them. Case in point, we're on board with Zilot Naj, in fact on board now with Marcus Raffel. That 0.5 of a second gap now just becomes 2/10. So Naj gained 3/10 on the straight. He dives on the inside, looks of a dink to turn number 1, no way through. So Marcus Raffel, who has been fighting as of now throughout the entire race, is gonna have to look forward to, well, rather dreadfully looking forward to fighting for another 5 laps with really fast guys behind him, Damon.
Yeah, and he really doesn't want to concede any more positions than he already has. Dropped down 7 positions from the start of the race. He's not going to be in a great spot. But here comes Kieran Harrison also swerving a little bit to get Kohavi off of his trail. Losing a little bit of time with the battle in front right now, but it looks like he might have that under control. As you can see, ooh, Naj is just looking for opportunities right now. And Rafael is actually holding the rest of the pack behind because he's losing time to Gal Valero.
Yeah, Valero now about 1.2 seconds ahead, so he is in that little safe buffer. Anything that's up to a second, you're just slightly safer, but you need to drive consistently to keep the gap in a very comfortable position. Something that Rafael doesn't have that kind of luxury, where he only has 3/10 in it between himself and Zilot Naj. As up in front, Roman Pascucci and Dino Filippa. Filippa has been the faster of the two guys here, as you can see. This particular lap, almost about 900 to 1/10 of a second to the good between him, Pascucci and Filippa. So Filippa then is faster there. Second sector slightly slower. Let's see what the third sector holds, but make no mistake, that is Dino Filippa with the bit between his teeth coming up now to the start finish straight.
Yeah, and I think in particular he wasn't slower just off pace alone. I think he might have actually gotten held up a little bit by Pascucci during the battle right now as he goes in for the inside dive onto turn 1. Will he be able to make it past the hairpin? Does tighten up near the end. It looks like he does make it pretty clean, all things considered, as they're coming out of turn 2 right now. And just like that, Dino Filippa takes away the lead.
Wow, that's a good dive there from Dino Filippa, because that was a very late one, wasn't it? He was in the slipstream, but it's fair play to both of them. Pascucci gave room on the inside, and Filippa made the move as clean as a whistle, and both Argentines now are well and truly ahead of the rest of the field. We thought that it was just 2 back-to-backs forming, but it's now multiple packs forming due to the fact that several drivers were trying to overtake each other, causing a bit of a bottleneck, and it just rescinded some battles.
Yeah, and you can see even further back that Marcos Raffel, the gap between him and Gal Valero extended by another 6/10, and he's still holding up the rest of the field. So the drivers behind him aren't going to be too particularly happy as the battle for 4th place. You can see in the picture right now, Pedro Dean is holding off an attack from Muesca, as well as Gonzalo Fabi right behind him. So barring any mistakes, he has to hold it for about 3 more laps, and he'll be safe. But these laps are pretty long, all things considered, so he might have a little bit of a tall task on him.
Yeah, indeed, and given the fact that Valero, Naj, Leitner, Harrison, those really fast guys who are known quantities behind the wheel, and we can put Gaston Kohabi for good measure because he's won a couple of heats this season as well in the TCRs right behind. So it is the kind of company that you do not want, given the fact that you probably, if you don't have the pace, you'll be sweating like bullets trying to keep those guys behind.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be in a position where you're holding up the rest of the field, because it just puts so much more pressure on you than you might be able to handle. As of course, Pascucci here is slowly losing time to Dino Filippa, so he probably won't be able to make a move just yet. He has to find a way to catch up. But David Perez also just behind him, slowly closing the gap. Pedro Dean again, another second behind that, but Muesca Looks like he might be mounting an attack soon. Here comes Kieran Harrison, pulling up alongside Norbert Leitner there. He tries to make a move on the outside, has to slow down just a little bit because he takes a wider line there, so he's not going to make that overtake happen just yet. But now Norbert Leitner knows that he's not safe in any shape or form.
Yeah, and he has his teammate right in front of him, with Harrison Kohlhavi close behind. It's a rock and a hard place, we can safely say, because he is not going to be in the most comfortable positions. He'd rather be the one doing the pursuing rather than being hunted at the same time. But that's how the cookie has crumbled for this particular race, because we only have about 3 laps to go now, two and a half laps actually in this one. As battles all around we're looking at, this is between Pedrodin and Carlos Muesca. Muesca about 0.3 of a second behind here. He's gained about 500s. Talk about nip and tuck gaps as well, especially lap by lap. The gaps are just so close even in timing, so you can see how precise these guys drive and how proficient they are in the TCR car to keep these gaps as close as possible. As you can see, Sector 2, almost 1.5 tenths then. Dean under severe pressure, Damon.
Yeah, he goes a bit wide there. Actually, I think he didn't brake hard enough for that, loses a lot of speed, and just like that, Muesca takes it away the position from him. Gonzalo Fabi was trying to do the same, but he wasn't close enough to make it happen. So Pedrodin losing a position there, but didn't have the greatest exit out of the start-finish straight, which gives Gonzalo Fabi and Gal Valero behind him, puts them into the trap. It looks like they might make a move. Here it comes. Gonzalo Fabi into turn 1. Gal Valero just behind him. Backs off the attack for now, but Fabi is committing. You can see he goes for the pass. They're really tight in each other. Pedrodin tries to close the door on him. Ends up going a bit wide as well, giving Gal Valero an opportunity to catch up even closer. Oh, it's very close, and then he ends up just losing so much speed. I think he tapped the back of Muesca there, and then just like that, Gal Valero takes the position, and he's now in P6.
Yeah. In fact, it was the back of Fabi, and Fabi has a bit of measured revenge on Dean, given the fact that these two were the ones that came a cropper early in the heat, where Fabi ended up in the grass, but luckily avoiding the wall, and he just showed off his frustration by just flashing the lights to Dean, and looks as though that's one up for Fabi, but he cannot be celebrating too soon because he still has Gal Valero right behind, with the race, with the heat coming to its closing stages here. 1.5 laps left to go now, Damon.
Yeah, and Kieran Harrison will probably have to call off this race. He'll probably sack it, but he can take pride. He can take solace in the fact that he will be starting at P3 on the grid as long as he maintains this position. So he could end up running away from the pack as well. You can see on board with Gonzalo Fabi, Gal Valero just behind him. That menacing front end of the Hyundai Elantra TCR car is a scary thing to see in your rearview mirror. Of course, a very menacing look from Gal Valero as he looks up. Try and make it past Gonzalo Fabi here.
Yeah, Fabi gained one position that previous lap, but he might just lose one here if he actually gets a poor run out of the final corner, which looks as though, apart from if the camera was zooming in for dramatic effect, that may not be the best exit that he had, but maintains the pace just somewhat enough as he manages to eke out a bit of a gap between himself and Gal Valero. As further behind, that's Gaston Kohlhavi actually getting the faster lap of the race, so he actually gets a couple of extra dollars for his troubles. So at least he'll start on the front row for heat number 2, feeling well better than the way he's finishing right now. As there goes, oh, Fabi runs wide, cuts across Valero, just chops off the nose, and the car numbers are important, 3 and 33. Remember Hungary 2017 or 18? That's when the Red Bull Racing guys of Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen came across at that time. Valero and Fabi be hoping that a similar case doesn't happen here, but judging by the way that these two are racing each other, the contact may seem a little bit inevitable, Damon.
Yeah, well, we're really close to the end right now, so I would rather not see any contact because it might signal the end of the race for both of these drivers. But you can see now, Gal Valero is looking up on the inside of Gonzalo Fabi right now. Immense pressure coming out from him, as I think we're about to cross the second section of the course right now. And Gal Valero, pretty wide car, all things considered, so he might not be able to make the move just yet. Just biding his time, and he wants to go for it. Look at that, swerving a little bit, try and cut him off. on the exit, on the entry of that corner, and so far not being able to do that just yet, as Galvalero is just looking for opportunities left and right. He's just fishing and baiting and waiting for an opportunity for Gonzalo Fabi to make a mistake, but he ends up going wide and then losing a lot of time as they're entering the start-finish straight now. And just like that, he has to call off the attack, and we can see Dino Filippo about to cross the start-finish line as well. Our race winner for Heat 1. Congratulations to him. And Vespucci holding on to second place with David Perez in a comfortable third. Huesca in fourth, Gonzalo Fabi in fifth. Galvalero unfortunately wasn't able to create an overtaking opportunity for him. And another one for Kieran Harrison. Unfortunate for him that he was forced off. Ended up in P10, so he'll be starting P4 on the grid next heat.
Yep, and it was a close fight towards finish, but nothing too dramatic as we normally come to expect in the AMX 10 front-wheel drive category. This is race 20 and Heat 1 results. This is a race win that goes to Dino Filippo after overtaking Roman Pascucci in a very late dive coming into this very corner in turn 1 towards the end of the race. Finishes 1.9 seconds ahead of his fellow countryman with David Perez in P3 completing the rostrum. And it's Argentines, left, right, and center, first to fifth. There's 4 Argentines in front of Galvalero, Pedro Dean, Marcus Raffel, who had a fighting race, and he'll be happy to finish in the top 10. In front of Harrison, Leitner, Kulhavi, Alexei Nesov, who jumped the start, and somehow Zilat Naj ended up outside of the entire thing, in fact. So something might have happened on the way to start finish line, but either way, that's your top 13 from the first heat. And may we see more of the same in heat number 2. Now then, we're getting ready for heat number 2. In fact, heat number 2 gets out of the way almost immediately. Green flag waves, and it's Zilat Naj, the Hungarian, who starts on pole position on his home track, coming into turn number 1. There's Alexei Nesov under pressure from Norbert Leitner, further behind Dino Filippo and Marcus Raffel fighting into turn number 1 as well between the two Brazilians. But that's Pedro Dean and Filippo. But apart from that, it looks as though it's very clean coming through turn 1. The two Hungarians are leading the line here, with Naj leading Leitner. Nesov holds on to P3 just for the time being, but Harrison is on the inside. They go side by side coming through turn number 4, and it looks as though oh no, Filippo gets actually spun off. So 0-0 after winning heat number 1. Dino Filippo gets tagged out, and that's the end of his charge for this particular race. As we look at Leitner that's Harrison and Nesov fighting for it with Kulhavi in P5. We did say earlier in the first heat, it was a clean start the first couple of corners. It lasted only one more corner this one, Damon.
Yeah, truly unfortunate set of circumstances there, but at least it only involved one car and there weren't multiple incidents in the same lap, as Ken Harrison is now in P3, so he'll be looking to mount an attack on the top front runners soon-ish, as long as he can fend off Nesov as well.
Yeah, but Nesov, of course, the highest rated iDriver among all the drivers here. 10k plus I rating. Looks as though TCR may not be his strong suit, because despite starting further up than he was when he started the first heat, as you can see the Filippo accident further behind, and this time it is Pedro Dean and Marcus Raffel, two of the Brazilians coming together with the Argentine, and the Heat 1 winner gets spun into the barriers, but luckily is still going, albeit about 11 seconds behind, so he's in the same position as Nesov was in that first heat. But the Hungarians are working together on this one. Naj and Leitner, across the line they go, about 900ths of a second here, and it looks as though Leitner is playing the team game between the two Hungarians, holding position just for the time being, so that they could create a bit of a gap between themselves and Kieran Harrison, who is now up to P3. Nesov holds on to P4, but Kulhavi and Fabi, who's blinking his lights here, will like to have a little say in that.
Yeah, I guess Uncle Javi is looking to make a move onto Nesov here with Gonzalo Fabi just behind him as well. And you mentioned the key plan of Naj and Leitner in order to keep Kieran Harrison at bay hasn't really come to fruition just yet, because Kieran Harrison is slowly narrowing the gap down there. You could see big slide coming down for Gaston Kulhavi. He might lose a little bit of speed there. Gonzalo Fabi tries to make a move on the inside, but he wasn't close enough to make it happen just yet. But he's going to be really happy with the fact that he manages to close the gap to that extent right now, as he tries to look for another opportunity. So now this battle for P4 is heating up, with Nesov still holding up the two cars, and Galvalero is not that far behind him as well.
Yeah, Valero only about 4 tenths behind Fabi, and there he is on screen. So the only Hyundai driver in the entire field. Looks as though he's not hampered by a difference in car selection, despite being an outlier. He's still hanging in there between them, and he did finish strongly in that first heat, where he finished about P. Where was he in that first heat?
I think he was P6.
P6. So, yeah, he was P6, and he is just one position away from his first heat position. He's in P7 right now, but much closer to the leaders as he was compared to where he was in heat number 1. Nasov, though, struggling real badly, about 1.3 seconds behind Harrison, and he's now becoming quickly a cork in the bottle for the rest of the field, Damon.
Yeah, it looks like it. He's going to be swerving a little bit, but Gaston is trying to keep himself in the slipstream. So does Fabi, so is Valero. Looks like they might see a dive, maybe see a dive happening right now. Since Gaston tries to go in deep, loses it a little bit of a shunt coming in from Gonzalo Fabi and Kuhavi onto Nasov, and Nasov got forced off his line there a little bit. They're still grinding doors right now as Gal Valero takes this opportunity to go bumper to bumper with these two drivers right now. Gonzalo Fabi is still trying to make a move there. Ooh, Nasov, I think brake checked him a little bit, trying to hold him off.
Well, not brake check per se. He just wanted to stall Fabi's momentum, and that worked a treat for him. But Fabi is still really close behind, and even closer is Valero. So the Argentine here, who I think is one of the real-world drivers that we have here. Plenty of real-world drivers have taken part in AMX Global, but in particular, when you have the Argentines competing in TCR, most of these guys compete in TC 2000, which is the premier touring car championship in Argentina. And I think Fabi's one of them. Some of the guys might just correct that in the comments as he looks on the inside, coming into turn number 10 to try and overtake Alexei Nasov. Nasov under huge pressure then. The car is fading ever so slightly from him, and he is going to fade even more here. White, he gets punted, and there goes Valero and Fabi to take the positions away from him.
But Fabi won't be able to hold on the position for long because here comes Valero on the inside, and Nasov also goes in for the inside, goes in for the dive. Little bit of a heavy shunt there from both cars as he tries to make the switch around. Gonzalo Fabi is also there on the inside, takes the better line out, and Nasov lost a lot of speed trying to go for that dive there. He still has the switchback, however. It takes the inside track, and that gives Pedro Dean time to catch up. And these two cars are just going at it. These drivers are clawing at each other's throats.
Wow, looks like the gloves are off now. Everybody is fighting for every single position possible. And Dancer with Gonzalo Fabi will be a little bit disappointed that he lost so much momentum trying to overtake Nasov, that he is now thrown into the clutches of the rest of the field. You can see there Dean, Pascucci, Perez, Muesca, Rifel, and all those other drivers. Now I'm going to include Felipe, unfortunately. Felipe's about 30 seconds behind this. Every single one of these guys from 7 all the way to 12 are fighting for fringe positions, but it still pays out either way, and they want to finish ahead of the other, with Dean around the outside of Fabi and makes the move stick, or does he? He still goes side by side. That's a better line coming out of the corner for Gonzalo Fabi. Holds on to position. So, look at that tree white in most of the corners here, Damon. Really can't call this. It's absolutely tight.
Yeah, and tight doesn't even begin to describe it right now. They're literally clashing doors with each other right now. There's so much contact going on. It's a miracle none of them has crashed out. Just yet a little bit of a shunt coming in for Muesca. I think that was Muesca. They just went off. Rifel and Muesca both went off. They're not going to be too happy with that result.
Yeah, Rifel was the victim of most of the shunts that time, but he managed to get away with that. This time, however, he was the attacker. Unfortunately, was the biggest loser over that one. He has lost 6 positions from where he started, and in this particular field, he's behind by 8 tenths. So, still in it. It's just unfortunate that the one time that he tried to overtake, he also ended up being beached. So, really, then you said just now that he was attacking, and unfortunately, he came a cropper.
Yeah, and it feels like Marcos Rifel. Ooh, there was a driver that just went off. I think that was Pascucci. He just spun on his own there. I wonder what happened there. We might see it. Oh, he hit the barrier as well. That's a lot of damage, I think.
Yeah, the rear whole bonnet, the rear trunk is gone, and the rear wing. So he is not entering the pits. So Pascucci is carrying on right now. He will be consoling knowing the fact that these cars are not as aero dependent as compared to, say, a Formula car. as Harrison attacks Leitner. This is the battle for the lead. What can they do here? The two Impulse Racing guys up in front. Naj and Leitner were working together with the draft to keep themselves ahead of Harrison. It looks as though that particular plan has not worked out in their favor because Harrison is having the bit between his teeth. There you go. Cameras from both Harrison and Leitner. Two of the hardest chargers in the TCR category here in the AMX Global, and they can't get any closer than this because one guy is defending for the sake of not only himself but for the team up in front and his teammate, while the other wants to go for glory here to extend his championship lead, Damien.
Yeah, Kieran Harrison is going to want to get that first position taken away from Naj because he wants to end up as the overall winner for this particular race. He hasn't been able to make any headway so far, but we're only at the halfway point of the race right now, so anything can still happen, and because of how close he is, we might see a move sooner rather than later right now. Leitner is in fact holding himself up just to try and slow Kieran Harrison down, but Kieran Harrison is not taking any of it lying down. Assetto Corsa is also slowly closing the gap, but this battle is between these two drivers and these two drivers alone.
Certainly, and SimRC versus Impulse Racing. We see that these liveries have been on show throughout the entire season that we've had here in the front wheel drive category for AMX 10, and it doesn't get any closer than this because it's a team game right now up in front, with Nash leading his teammate Leitner, doing the bits that he could to just conserve that lead. The gap's now about 5 tenths per second, so it is working. 3 tenths to the good that time, but Harrison does one on the inside. Does he make a mistake? Yes, he does for a while, but he pushes Leitner off wide. Leitner's not going to take it that line. He's going to come back at him coming into turn number 2. Oh, that's a big touch. Luckily, both of them kept it together.
Oh no! That was really close. I
in.
think the camera was zoomed in a little bit closer, but I think they managed to avoid the contact. Maybe a little bit of a shunt from Leitner, but that will cost him a lot of time and momentum as Kulhavi is looking to capitalize on that opportunity. But now Kieran Harrison has a clean road in order to take Sheila Naj's position, and he's got a lot of time to make up, but if anyone can do it, it'll be Harrison. And look at that! Gaston Kulhavi tries to go in on the inside, but ends up tapping Norbert Leitner and causing both of them to go into a massive slide. That gives Galvalero the opportunity to catch up.
Wow, wait. I did say earlier that the gloves have come off. Now the gloves have completely been thrown away. It is going to be a straight fight between these guys on the podium and for the race win. Because remember, Leitner now, after the collision that he had, it's 2 seconds to the good between himself and Harrison. So he has to watch his mirrors again as Kulhavi attacks, hounds him for all he's worth, with Galvalero watching brief, a further 8 tenths behind. Up in front, and Harrison only about 8 tenths behind Naj as well. So it's 2 distinct battles for the battle on the rostrum, Damon.
Yeah, and it's always so much fun to watch TCR races because you know these drivers are always going to go hard and ham when it comes to races like this, especially with so much on the line as well. Galvalero is just the shadowy silhouette figure in the background waiting for an opportunity to pounce. As you can see, Kulhavi is making up a little bit of time over Norbert Leitner, mostly because of that dive that he tried during the first sector of the lap. But he's back on his tail right now. Will he make an opportunity like that again? I don't know, because it might end up in an unfavorable position for both of them.
Yeah, and in fact, if anything were to happen to both of them, that's going to be Valero's positions. Valero picking up 2 free positions, and that is definitely what Leitner and Kulhavi do not want coming at this current juncture, because it's to the closing stages of the race. Any sort of move will have to be calculated. They do not want to throw away all the hard work that's happening. And speaking of nearly throwing it away, that is Nasov being attacked by Fabi on the inside, Perez on the outside. Perez goes wide. Oh, that's a touch. That's net code. That's definitely net code because Perez did not even touch him there. Fabi only had a small glance at the Russian, but Nasov hunted off, but somehow managed to keep it together. And luckily, because it's front-wheel drive, they just plowed the throttle, the car straightens itself out, Damon.
Yeah, and I was about to mention that because if these were rear-wheel drive cars, I think we'd have a big slide, and I think Nasov just lost all of his steering and lost his wheel as well. He's out of the pits. Vespucci was also out as well earlier on, but that was a big crash, and I think his steering just gave up.
Yeah, that looks like a telltale signs of hardware failure, isn't it? It's not like he just gave up almost immediately because of a couple of incidents there. That literally was his hardware giving up the ghost completely. As we can see what happened to Roman Pascucci the previous lap. That is with Carlos Muesca, and a pit maneuver there sends Pascucci out. In fact, this was a few laps earlier. That's why he lost that rear wing. So, that is really unfortunate for Pascucci. And to add insult to injury, he has actually went out of the race much earlier. So the man who was on the first heat podium has also gone back to terra firma here, Damon.
Yeah, and I think because of that, it looks like Kieran Harrison might end up as the overall winner for this particular race right now. He's still hounding Silat Nash. He actually narrowed the gap down to less than half a second. So 2 more laps to go. He might look for an opportunity. As we can see, Gaston Kulhavik is still trying to pressure Norbert Leitner. The gap is pretty consistent between the two of them right now. Gal Valero still waiting in the shadows for an opportunity to strike. And wow, I mean, this battle for the front has been very, very intense.
Certainly, first and second, third and fourth. There we go. That's a really nice segue, wasn't it? Third and fourth, back to first and second. How the battle has been going on here. Nash has been holding on really relatively quite well, because looking at the sector times and the previous laps, it was about 0.2 of a second. In fact, both Nash and Harrison set their personal best previously. A 54.8 for Harrison, a 55 flat for Nash, so 0.2 the difference. And this one, however, looks as though it's Harrison's bit between his teeth here, because 0.2 of a second that first heat, first sector, and now 400 seconds. We see what happened to Nasov. Again, I agree with your deduction there, Damon. It looks as though the wheel just gave up on him, and he went for a horrifying crash. Luckily, it's virtual. He got away with that one, but the wheel wasn't as lucky.
Yeah, and we're looking back on the live timing boards, which you can see once we bring up the QR code on the side there. Kieran Harrison is the only driver with the sub 55 second lap. He's in the 54s right now, so he is very, very much on pace. Look at that, another 54 from him. He is using this slipstream to its absolute fullest, and he looks to make a move onto Naj again on turn 1, the same place he did so on Leitner a few laps ago. We're on board Harrison. You can see on the picture right now, he's really looking for something right now. He's swerving a little bit. Might be a little bit of a shundown. He manages to back off just in time as they're entering the left-hander into the right-hander. Oh man, this is really tough to call. They're on the penultimate lap right now, so we still got about maybe 3 minutes left of the race before everything else comes to a head. The battle between Leitner and Kulhavi is also heating up in the back there. We have Gal Valero standing by as an onlooker, waiting for a mistake from any of these drivers.
Yeah, he's got the best seat in the house, and he is definitely in the most comfortable position, because he can wait for the two guys to just punch each other out, and he could get a free position. Easier said than done, of course, because you have to really bank on the guys in front of you to make that mistake. Otherwise, we just maintain the same position. As we can see, the inset, both different battles, first and second, third, fourth, and fifth. In fact, they're almost in one shot, even, because it's not that far in between first and second to third.
Yeah, they're all on the camera right now. It's a really, really fun watch, especially when you're busy just getting yourself focused on this battle for P1 and then having to turn your attention to P3 as well. Right now, Kieran Harrison is still looking for a move. The gap has been a consistent 3/10 since the start of the lap right now. He just has to make one mistake, and we will call it a day right now as they're entering the start-finish straight. If there's any time to make a move, it has to be now. And it looks like he might just be close enough to make it happen.
Yep, but remember, one thing to catch is another thing to overtake, and Leitner has actually pulled out all the stops here to defend. Naj, on the other hand, is letting Harrison look one on the inside, and that is actually a good thing to do, because in touring cars, we did mention before, you cannot go narrow, because if you go narrow and try to brake late, you're gonna go wide, because the car is just not gonna stop in time. But this time, however, Naj pulls the block, and Harrison has no way through. Likewise, Kulhavi and Leitner, no changes in position there either, because it looks as though Leitner has had the measure of Kulhavi in terms of his attacks, but there's only the first couple corners. They still have the rest of the lap to finish, Damon.
Yeah, we're still on board. Harrison looks to make a move on the outside, not close enough. He actually loses a bit of momentum on the entry there, but the exit might be good. Oh, it's very close. They're right next to each other. And Kieran Harrison still trying to make something happen. Goes a little bit wide to get a little bit more entry speed. And then exiting out of the chicane there. Oh my god, this is really, really tough to call. This could be going all the way to the end.
Indeed, Damon, and it's going to be intense all the way. There's only one more overtaking spot. In fact, two for Harrison if he were to actually be given that option. One is coming out right now through turn number 13. Is he going to try and do it? In fact, turn 12. Is he going to do it on the inside? No. In fact, Nash goes narrow this time, but might leave himself open here if he were to not get it right coming on the exit, coming into turn 13. And he does so brilliantly. Harrison on the outside. Nash on the inside, and there we go. That's one last overtaking spot that he has covered off. Only one more corner left. He's going narrow again this time onto the wall, and he's done it. Nash manages to hold on for dear life in front of Harrison. Likewise, his teammate Leitner manages to hold off Kulhavi too. Across the line they go, 1/10 separating first and second, and Nash does win on home soil. He'll be absolutely chuffed with that one. And to add to the Hungarian celebrations, Noble Leitner finishes in third in front of Kulhavi and Valero. What an absolutely intense finish there, Damon.
Yeah, all the way to the end was to how intense the battle is, as we see Dino Filippa is about to finish the final turn and cross the start-finish straight. Unfortunate for him, our Heat 1 winner relegated to P11 due to an unfortunate incident at the start of the lap that he just never could recover from. But aside from that, however, what a drive from Kieran Harrison. Like, honestly, he made Nash run for his money all the way until the end.
Yep, and if we were to have a vote for driver today, Harrison definitely win that, bar none, because he had to fight it all for both heats. But for his efforts, he will get a fastest lap of the race, so that's an extra $7 in his wallet. Though, credit to what credit is due, Zilat Nash, after losing his teammate Noble Leitner to Harrison taking away the position, had to fend it all for the next half of the race, manages to make it stick, and takes a well-deserved win on virtual home soil and in real life soil as well, because he's still on terra firma in Hungary. He will definitely be dead chuffed by that. Leitner third, Kulhavi fourth, Valero fifth, Fabi sixth, Perez seventh, Dean 8, 9 Filippa, and 10 is Marcos Riffel, who actually went to the pit lane in the final lap, would you believe it, because I think he had a drive-through. Muesca too, with Nasov a disappointing 12 after what we can safely assume was hardware failure, and Pascucci, who finished P2 in the first heat, is unfortunately the guy who gets the wooden spoon for this one. And that's it for AMX 10, the front-wheel drive class. It has truly provided, once again, an amazing pair of heats. And I think, Damon, bar none, this has been the best category for the entire season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so far every TCR race that we've had has been a real banger, and honestly, I wouldn't want anything less. Unfortunately, there will be no interviews tonight, so it's only a one-time thing. We'll have it resumed very, very shortly within the next race or so. But because of that, I think it's a lot of room for us in particular to just get our final thoughts on what's happening. And for me personally, having not had that much experience on Hungaroring, it was absolute blast to watch.
Certainly it was, and despite the stigma surrounding overtaking at the circuit, we had plenty of close side-by-side action and drivers really going for it in areas that we thought, okay, maybe that may not work, but in these cars can, compared to open-wheel cars that we are accustomed to, especially the Formula 1 cars. But regardless, we were treated to two absolute bangers of heats in this particular race, and we got two very deserving winners, especially given the fact that Zilat Nash can actually celebrate a home victory, and that's really nice to see. The Hungarian contingent will definitely be happy with that one. As you can see, socials at the bottom, AMX Global on Instagram, Twitch, X, formerly known as Twitter, Discord, live on YouTube alongside the Twitch broadcast. You can sign up for our races on amxrace.com on our website, and of course, short form content will be coming out on both TikTok and Instagram much later into the season, as we are coming up to the crescendo, the business end of the season, where championship points in each of the classes will be becoming very important. But I think, Damon, your words on the TCR race around Hungaroring, especially given the fact that it's your first time seeing this racetrack virtually, is a great way to sum it up. And I think we can just call it a night for tonight. So, for myself, I'm here alongside me, Damon. It's good night, and hopefully you enjoyed the races as much as we have. And we will see you in the upcoming races this Saturday and Sunday. But for now, it's goodbye.